Okay.
presentation, which is a little unusual, but
It's fine.
before or after it's
Mr. City Manager, and maybe so look, Mason has these upcoming events to like raise money for his stuff. So he was thinking hopefully we could put it up somewhere like in City Hall or something. Like maybe like on the front counter or something, just stick it on the flyer. Internally posting. DUN. Done.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin our council meeting this evening. We'll start with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
Sorry. Please go ahead.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
Thank you. And our city attorney, Walter Chung, will bring us out of closed session.
Well, the city council took no reportable action in closed session today.
And Councilmember Contreras will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and our city clerk has some procedural items.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you are ready to leave, you may ask one of our staff members in the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
To speak on an item on tonight's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item that you'd like to speak on and give it to the clerk's secretary of staff here on the dais. Speaker slips are available on the table just outside the council chambers. For members of the public participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature to indicate that you'd like to speak or by pressing *9 on your phone. We'll announce when to raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to make a comment on the specific item being discussed. Speakers will have 3 minutes each to address the city council. Now we'll go to our city manager, John Connolly, for approval of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to this evening's agenda.
Very good. And we do have a public speaker for our first presentation item, and that's Dr. Doyle, our superintendent. Dr. Doyle, if you want to come forward and address the body for 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, members of the council, honorable mayor, staff. I wanted to come to thank you on behalf of Vista Unified School District for the incredible support that you have provided over these past number of years, starting with COVID. Each one of you individually has been to many of our events. All of our events are focusing on the item you have in front of you tonight, the proclamation. I wanted to thank each of you individually for your commitment to the students of Vista and our city, and know that we truly, from our heart, appreciate all the great work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and with that, I want to invite the council to join me at the dais while we present several presentations. Our first proclamation tonight is to declare February 2024 as Career Technical Education Month in the city of Vista. I'd like to invite Rick McCurdy and Robert Kroll from the Vista Unified School District Career Pathways to come forward and accept the proclamation. Let me give this to you to show off while I read it to everybody. Get all my papers settled here. There you are. Very good. This proclamation reads, whereas February 2024 has been designated as Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career Technical Education, CTE, and the City of Vista, and whereas career technical education offers students the opportunity to gain academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and students who participate in CTE programs earn 20% more income over their career than those who do not. Whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement while earning valuable industry certifications and licenses. Whereas the Vista Unified School District has built 10 career technical education industry pathways with over 20 unique course offerings focusing on high-demand industries such as construction, welding, medical, and recently completed the construction of a state-of-the-art commercial manufacturing building at Rancho Buena Vista High School. And whereas career and technical education students are prepared to enter high-wage, high-demand careers while ensuring that employers have access to a qualified and thriving workforce. And whereas career and technical education provides an answer to the projected deficit of 6.5 million skilled workers in key industries, including infrastructure, healthcare, and manufacturing, ensuring America has a strong and competitive economy. And whereas the Vista City Council does hereby urge all citizens to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career technical education programs in the Vista community and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. Now, therefore, I and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim February 1st through the 29th, 2024, as Career Technical Education Month in the City of Vista. All right. Thank you. All right. Yes. Our next presentation is a proclamation declaring February 21st, 2024 as Mason Harvey Day in the City of Vista. And now I'd like to invite Mason to come forward. Shake everybody's hand. Now we've got this. Hold that up while we read it to everybody. Whereas 14-year-old Mason Harvey has been an inspiration and strong supporter of the community through his You Make a Difference campaign and numerous drives for the Ronald McDonald House, whereas Mason has organized Good Karma stands to thank the community for their efforts to help support the San Diego Blood Bank and Ronald McDonald House, and whereas Mason has been a part of his family business, Karmatude Candles, since 2000, using part of the proceeds to raise funds for the first Ronald McDonald House and now the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And whereas Mason has been a pillar of strength during his diagnosis with Crohn's disease and has dedicated himself to raising awareness, helping to raise over $100,000 for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation and speaking out publicly in his broadcast, I Be Determined. And whereas Mason has led by example and shown empathy and kindness to others in our community who suffer not only Crohn's disease, but also any chronic illness by illustrating and writing a book called Not Your Average Slice of Pizza for those with chronic illness. And whereas Mason has helped create and pass Assembly Bill AB 1632 with a local senator that was signed into law and went into effect this year to help anyone suffering from IBD or similar health issues have access to any restroom, and whereas Mason is dedicated to take steps at an annual fundraiser and walk with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation He is kicking off his campaign for the 2024 Take Steps fundraiser. As the captain of his team, I be determined, with hopes of raising over $10,000 to find better treatments and a cure for Crohn's disease. And whereas the Vista City Council wishes to offer its sincere appreciation to Mason Harvey for making a valuable contribution to our community, now therefore I and the members of the Vista City Council commend Mason Harvey for his commitment to helping others better our community, and do hereby proclaim Wednesday, February 21, 2024 as Mason Harvey Day in the city of Vista. How about that?
So much for all that you do.
Do one with Mason and one with his whole family. Let's go, Harvey. Come on. Yeah, do the dance now, guys.
Let's let Fred take over just the family. Well done, Mason. Okay, our final proclamation tonight is one declaring February 2024 as Black History Month in the city of Vista. And now I'd like to invite Danielle Escobar, Vice President of North San Diego County NAACP, Branch 1086, and Clarence Rich, previous Labor and Industry Chairman, to come forward to accept the proclamation.
My secretary and my assistant secretary.
Yeah, you want to introduce them for
Yes.
us?
If I could have our branch secretary, Kelly Gillespie, and our assistant chair for the treasury, Gerald Hampton.
Welcome. Thank you very much. All right. Whereas Black History Month, also known as National African American History Month, celebrates the contributions that African Americans have made to American history in their struggles for equality and deepens our understanding of our nation's history. And whereas in 1915, noted Black scholar Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, and initiated a week celebrating Black history in February 1926, and a month that includes the birthday of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And whereas in 1969, educators and students at Kent State University proposed Black History Month, resulting in the first month-long celebration in February 1970. And whereas 50 years after the first celebration, President Gerald R. Ford officially recognized Black History Month during the bicentennial of the United States in 1976, urging Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our nation's history. And whereas every president since has recognized and celebrated the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to the economic and cultural development of our nation, and whereas African American residents contribute greatly to the economic viability and the high quality of life of our community as professionals, business owners, educators, students, volunteers, veterans, and much more, now therefore I and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 as Black History Month in the city of Vista. We have one more presentation from no, but we're going to turn it back to that.
Let's make that on tape.
Okay, and at this time, I'd like to invite Shannon Ayala, partner with Davis Farr LLP, the city's independent financial auditor, to come forward and provide a presentation to the city of fiscal year 2022-2023's annual comprehensive financial report and its associated audit. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. As the mayor mentioned, I am here to report on the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. The audit is completed in various phases. We have a planning and interim phase in May 2023 that included updating our documentation of internal controls and performing some preliminary testing. In October and November, we perform our final field work, which is substantively testing all the material, asset and liability accounts, as well as analytically testing the revenues and expenses. During this fiscal year, the city implemented new governmental accounting standards board number 96, which is related to subscription-based IT arrangements. If you'll remember last year, there was a similar standard GASB 87 as it related to leases. This year, it actually relates to subscription-based agreements. Had much less of an effect on the city's financial statements than GASB 87. Only about a $265,000 balance was recorded for an asset and then a related liability. So the culmination of the process of our audit is the issuance of the annual comprehensive financial report, which you have. And the purpose of the audit is to express an opinion on those financial statements. And I'm happy to report that our team of auditors did spend approximately 600 hours performing all of our tests. And we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that can be received on the financial statements, also known as a clean audit opinion. This was dated December 11th, 2023. In addition to the annual comprehensive financial report, we also issued the financial statements of Buena Sanitation District, the Vista Joint Powers Agency, and those also had unmodified opinions dated December 11th, 2023. We also performed procedures over successor agency compliance, and there were no instances or exceptions noted with compliance for the successor agency. We also perform agreed upon procedures over Proposition L, and we did not have any exceptions noted as a result of our procedures. And lastly, we issued the GAN limit letter, which is an agreed upon procedures engagement over the appropriations limit for the city. Again, no exceptions noted. And then finally, we issue the communication to those in governance letter, which is the letter to the city council. That will state sensitive accounting estimates, significant disclosures, any journal entries that we had as a result of our procedures that were material, any disagreements or difficulties encountered during the audit, which I'm happy to report there were not any. And then I would just like to say that we do appreciate the time and effort of the finance staff, Mike Sylvia and Matt McDonald. Each year, the process gets easier for them. We have built upon the rapport in prior years and appreciate the fact that they always take our suggestions made during fieldwork and implement those to make the process more efficient and better. And that concludes my prepared comments. And if any of you have any questions about the audit process or results, I am happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Seeing no questions from the council, well, thank you for being with us this evening and for your good work in this audit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to bring us to the oral communications portion of our agenda. Any member of the public that wishes to do so may address the council on agency-related matters that are not on tonight's agenda by requesting to speak during this section of the agenda. If you are participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press star 9 at this time if you'd like to speak. The number of speakers that will be heard during this segment is limited to 10. The remaining speakers will be heard under the second oral communications item. We have a few, looks like we have 4 speakers this evening. We'll begin with Joe Hood. And those of you who I call your name, if you would please come forward, sit in the front row and be ready to speak when your name is called. Victoria Bartok, Lucas Velasco, and Sid Rothenberg, if you would please come forward and be ready to speak when it's your turn. Mr. Hood.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for signing the mayor's Monarch Pledge. Monarch numbers in Mexico are down 59% this year due to pesticide use and climate change. Please install many Monarch waste stations around the city. 2, the estimated cost of damage in Southern California from the recent atmospheric rivers is around $11 billion, and 9 people died. The LA-San Diego train out of service again. This was LA's wettest February in 110 years, causing 475 mudslides. Winds and fallen trees left 850,000 homes without power. And right here on good old 78, Buena Vista Creek overflowed again, blocked up again, and blocked access to 78. The U.S. had an average 8.5 weather events per year with $1 billion plus in losses between 1980 and 2000. Last year, we had 28. We need bigger sewers, green roofs, strategic landscaping. Will insurance cover all these costs? Actually, insurance is slowly abandoning California and other states. Our safety nets are threadbare. Not acting fast enough will be tragically expensive. We have a climate emergency. Let's declare one and act accordingly. 3, to successfully adapt to our climate crisis between now and 2050, Vista must make multiple transformational changes, including how we generate energy, live in our buildings, travel, enjoy nature throughout our city, and much more. Vista's general plan update must focus much more on what living in our city will be like in 2050. Let's create a glorious vision far more than extending business as usual. Let's have a wonderful future for Vista. Thanks.
Victoria Bartok, followed by Lucas Velasco.
Hi. I appreciate you listening. This is the second request that we're making. I'm here on behalf of the residents that live on Copper Avenue. And we made one request, and I wasn't here. We sent it in, and we were told that there was none of our requests would be granted, especially the bumps, because the ambulance or fire trucks could not use those bumps. Well, they did put the fire bumps on Copper Drive, which is up there. There's 4 bumps, and the fire engines use that road as well. So we were kind of drawn back on that. There are more cars now coming because we don't have speed bumps. Copper Avenue is a little road. Maybe that's why we don't get the attention that we deserve. But there's no sidewalks, there's no curbing. And the water from Ann's Way drips down, floods the street because there's no water drainage at that point where it comes down the hill. Also from Copper Drive, there is a big water pipe that pushes out all the water on the other side of Copper Avenue. So we're getting a lot of water when it floods. We're getting a lot of speed from the people using this road because they don't want to take the speed bumps roads. And there was an incident, and this is exactly why we had the first request. A lady fell into the hole because of the water and because no curbs, no sidewalks. She fell into one of the holes, and an ambulance had to take her to the hospital for that injury. So I'm here for prevention, because what if a child falls and an accident happens? Also, there's workers from the bus station coming and using that road at night. And if you ask any of the police officers who drive that way, it is a dark street. There's no lights, but there's telephone poles. Wouldn't it be easy just to put solar lights on that, save the city money, and it's solar? So we're requesting speed bumps and solar lights. I mean, if the curbing and the sidewalk would be good, but there are bushes growing about 2 feet into some streets in some areas. So we need help. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lucas Velasco.
Dear distinguished community leaders, I am writing on behalf of the Public Policy Club at Rancho Buena Vista High School, and our mission is to prevent underage substance abuse in our community. On Monday, March 11th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., we will be hosting a substance abuse prevention forum in the RBV Gymnasium located at 1601 Longhorn Drive in Vista. The parents of the victim of an underage drunk driver will be there to share their tragic story of how underage drinking affected their family. Their son, baby as Isaiah, was a young boy who was struck in his stroller by a teenage drunk driver, and now he is paralyzed and faces many problems that make his life a constant struggle. The family will be there to help prevent underage drinking and bring a powerful message to our community. Members of our club will co-facilitate the forum and help attendees, including parents and students, learn that most teens don't use alcohol, tobacco, or marijuana, or other drugs. According to the 2019 California Healthy Kids Survey for Vista Unified, fewer than 1 out of 5 high school juniors reported any substance use in the past month. However, this was the first time that marijuana using and vaping were higher than alcohol use and had increased since 2017. As we head into spring break, prom, graduation, and the summer season, the forum will serve as an important reminder of the dangers of substance abuse and urges parents and young adults to make healthy choices. The Public Policy Club would like to formally invite you to attend our forum, and we feel that this forum will provide a great deal of information on the effects of underage drinking and drug use. Our club is looking to fill all the seats in order to spread our message to as many people as possible. We believe that your attendance will be of utmost importance to our community, that we are doing all that we can to help combat the problem of underage drinking and drug use. Thank you.
Thank you. Sid Rothenberg?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. Today, Mardi Gras passed through the Senior Center with a rip-roaring, foot-stomping party, complete with Mardi Gras beads. The meal was a Creole chicken gumbo with rice. The entertainment was provided by Billy Lee and the Swamp Critters, featuring a trombonist in the true New Orleans jazz style, and we can't leave without mentioning the washboard player. Approximately 100 people attended. The Park Terrace Cafe was full to overcrowded, but room was still made for dancing, as well as a long snake line of joyous people weaving around the tables. Y'all missed out. This type of programming and entertainment is not inexpensive and takes a good deal of advanced planning. The seniors respond in kind with great pleasure and excitement. Many dress up to reflect the occasion or holiday. Activities like this attract new attendees and generate new interest and excitement about what the Senior Center can be. The annual program budget for the Senior Center for fiscal years 23-24 and 2024-2025 is $14,050, or $1,171 per month. This is the same paltry amount for both years. It is impossible to offer any quality programs for $14,050. Monthly entertainment alone can make up half of the allotted budget. The December 2023 generous Christmas programs came about through a $10,000 grant from the San Diego Senior Communities Foundation. That is equal to 71% of the Gloria McClellan Senior Center annual budget. I think the City of Vista can do better to support and recognize the senior community as well as the Senior Center during the next upcoming budgetary process. The question is, will you? Thank you.
Now we'll go to Becky Rapp on Zoom. Becky, are you there? Becky, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, we can hear
Good
you.
evening. Okay, good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. My name is Becky Rapp, and I'm a parent and a public health educator. And I'm deeply concerned regarding the marijuana products and how they're destroying the brains of young people. Today, I wanted to bring to your attention that this month, a first of its kind concurrent congressional resolution known as Randy's Resolution was introduced by U.S. Senator Ricketts and Representative Sessions to combat the growing public health threat associated with high-potency marijuana and increasingly addictive commercialized THC drugs. Randy was a young man who lost his life to suicide after suffering a psychotic break brought on by pot. The resolution urges action at the local, state, and federal levels to combat the growing threat to public health. They hope to raise awareness about the dangers of these industrialized products, including candies, drinks, vape oils, and other edibles that are often 6 times as potent as traditional marijuana. At a press conference on Capitol Hill, Senator Ricketts said the average THC potency in marijuana has increased by 287% since 1995, and it's killing young Americans. Randy's resolution is a call to arms for every level of government to do more to combat the dangerous, addictive marijuana products flooding the market today. He said, quote, "We can't stand by and do nothing while the big marijuana lobby gets the next generation addicted to a drug that causes mental health disorders and cognitive impairment." I ask this council to publicly support Randy's resolution, sending a message that the city of Vista will not stand by and allow big marijuana to addict our youth and young adults. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us to our consent calendar this evening. The recommendations on our consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk's secretary by using the raise your hand feature on Zoom or by pressing *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We have 10 consent items this evening. Councilmember Contreras.
I'd like to pull C10 and make a motion to accept the remainder of the calendar.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Everybody hit the lock button. There we go. That item is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to item C10. Councilmember Contreras, would you like a staff report on this item?
You know what? I don't need a staff report, but I do have a topic that I want to bring up to add. Seeing as this is for federal and state government, there's not a ton that we can do at the city level when it comes to healthcare. But what I see missing here is support for universal healthcare, and I think that's critical not only for the economy, because a lot of folks who have insurance through their work really depend on it, and sometimes it makes it hard to leave a job even if you want to, because you want to maintain that health care. And in many instances, folks that are, self-employed, they got to pay a lot for health care. So I think, I would really want to see the city in this platform here support universal health care or something to that effect. So just seeing if any of my council members would be supportive of that, of adding that to this list.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Contreras. I am supportive of universal health care. And if this item wouldn't have been pulled from another member, I was just going to speak on the item to say thank you to city staff and to some of the community organizations and folks that I met with a couple of weeks ago, the Chamber of Commerce, and also childcare providers, including MAC Project, Children's Paradise, and also the Boys and Girls Club, to discuss grant opportunities and programs that the city of Vista could look at to enhance childcare opportunities for the community. And you may have noticed that in our new, in our updates to our legislative platform, we also have under economic development, number F, that says support legislation that increases access to quality, affordable early care and education childcare in the region. And so I'm really glad that that is included on this platform for 2024, because after speaking with, a lot of different stakeholders. It sounds like childcare, the cost of childcare, the accessibility of it, the universality of it is a challenge for a lot of parents and a lot of employers. So I'm really glad that we are including that on this platform. Thank you for the folks that met with me, and I hope as we get more opportunities to advocate for this issue that we can do that.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I will also support that. Just coming from my own personal experience, you all know I had a child last year. My child had a severe case of jaundice after 2 days of not being able to get fed properly. And I don't know how anybody would be able to even afford what we had to go through if they don't have good health care. Just the cost of childbirth. And then, my son started daycare, and that alone is expensive enough, to the deputy mayor's point, but then he's been sick for 3 weeks because he's getting something from every single child there, and then he brings it home. My wife got sick, and then I got sick. So I am all for looking for measures that can make sure that our working population, and just our population in general, has a universal health care plan to make sure that they can stay healthy and be taken care of when they need to. So I would support that platform being added.
Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilperson Contreras, Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead. Is it better if I make a motion that includes, so I would like to approve this legislative platform, but with the addition that the city support at the state and federal level universal health care. Thank you.
Can I make a recommendation that you offer a motion to approve the platform here with instructions also to request staff to bring back an amendment, including that language, so that we can see it and it can be drafted, we can all agree to it, and then, because other than that, we're just getting 2 words. Do you want to have them draft a statement and have them bring it back?
Sure, we can do that. I think it's an unnecessary step, but if you're willing to second the motion, then I'll go ahead and move forward with that amendment.
Well, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the language. I want to see the language of the policy that we're going to be supporting. I think typically that's how we do it. So I'd like to see the actual verbiage of the policy that we're going to support. Okay, so we'll just set this item aside and bring it back with or do you want to?
Sure, that's fine. It seems like there might not be support for universal health care. I think it could be as simple as saying that we support efforts at the state and federal level to have universal health care. But if we need to delay this in order to see that language on a piece of paper or digitally, I want to honor your request, but I'm having a feeling right now that you might not be supportive regardless of what it looks like. So I will go ahead and honor your request that this come back before the body, but we can have that discussion when it comes back.
Sure, and just in full transparency, I don't know if I'm going to support it or not, because
I get that feeling, yeah.
No, but this is the point of regular order in this body, and the way that all councils and all legislative bodies work is that you either bring the actual language that you would like inserted, and you give a copy to everybody so we can agree to it, or you could even take the time to draft to give the exact verbiage. But the problem is, when we agree, it's not enough to agree to give. We don't delegate authority to write legislation. This is a legislative body, and it's our job to write the legislation. So we can give direction to staff to bring draft legislation back, but then it has to be our authority. So there's a policy question, but there's also a procedural question of how we conduct ourselves, and do we put forward language that everybody understands what the language is, everybody knows what it means, so that we can agree to it or not agree to it. And there's 2 different points to be had there. Did I get everybody who else wanted to be recognized? So I guess direction is given. So there's no desire to approve this with a direction to staff to bring back an amendment. Nobody wants to do that. Okay, very good. So the direction from the council, you understand? Very good. Okay. And then that will bring us to our first discussion item. We have two this evening. The first one is regarding Plymouth Drive sidewalks. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Deputy Mayor Melendez asked for this item to be placed on the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pull up the agenda report, and I have some slides for us tonight and a brief presentation. Great. So I'm going to be kicking off a discussion about Plymouth Drive sidewalks, and we'll go ahead and go to the first slide. Let's skip this over. Okay, so after getting feedback from a number of neighbors in that area, I've identified that Plymouth Drive would be a good candidate for sidewalk infrastructure improvements. There's a number of reasons for that. The big overarching theme here is that Plymouth Drive is an active neighborhood, and we have the opportunity to plan neighborhood improvements to Plymouth Drive that would enhance pedestrian safety, enhance public transportation, smart growth, and affordable housing. And the reasons for that are, first, the closeness to transit. Plymouth connects to Olive Avenue and is 0.4 miles away from the Vista Transit Station. There's also the proximity to our downtown in Vista Village Drive, where neighbors can access shopping and restaurants. We have multiple school sites, including Vida, General Murray, and even further sites. And there's growing housing in that area, and housing that's been in that area for a long time that is quite dense. That includes 2 mobile home parks, multiple apartments and condo developments, and long-standing homes along Plymouth Drive. Going to the next slide, I would propose that we install sidewalks on Plymouth Drive. Working with our city staff, we have a couple of options, but when it comes to what we can actually put on this street, there is an opportunity to install about 2,500 feet, less than half a mile, of sidewalk infrastructure on the east side of Plymouth Drive. And that would be spanning the complete length of Plymouth Drive from Olive Avenue to Vista Village Drive. And I'll also note on the map here, just for your reference, that red line is the proposed sidewalk infrastructure, and the pink dot is General Murray High School, so you can see it for your reference, and the orange dot is the Vista Transit Station, and then the blue dot is the nearest grocery store, which is Fraser Farms. And so to continue the conversation, the City of Vista does not have a prioritization framework for sidewalk infrastructure improvements. These projects may be requested by the community, and a number of factors will determine if they are funded and constructed, including individual council member priorities, strategic planning, developer contributions, grant opportunities, and regional plans. So I would make it my goal to plan ahead to ensure that these neighborhood improvements can be secured for our community. And there are steps that we can take to secure grants and ensure financial solvency. So I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And I also want to say thank you to our neighbor from Copper Avenue who joined us. Ma'am, I missed your name at the start of your statement, but let's definitely connect because there are plenty of improvements that we can do in that area. I know that people coming from Vista Way are often turning onto Copper Avenue at really high speeds. And so we can connect on some of the city's infrastructure, traffic calming improvements that we can do there. But a lot of it's about planning ahead, right? So I appreciate you coming and you're talking about prevention and you see that if we have the built environment that keeps people safe, then we can prevent some of these issues from happening. So I have my card and hopefully we get through this meeting and I can come connect with you. So what I would like to propose is a path toward improvements, and I'll share some financing opportunities for you. So after looking at the census tract where Plymouth Drive is, we, with the city grant writer and the city manager's office, we were able to identify that this census tract is actually eligible for grants under a couple different scenarios. The first is it could be considered an underserved area. It could also be considered an opportunity zone, and it's also could be considered an area of persistent poverty. And those, depending on the grants that we pursue, we might be eligible for a number of funds. We really don't know what opportunities are out there until we pursue those grants. The total cost of the project from end to end is $939,809.08. And the soft costs would include things like planning and design rather than construction, and that's a little bit over $200,000. And my recommendation would be for the City of Vista to develop a shovel-ready project so that we could go after grant funding. And the way that we develop a shovel-ready project is to make sure that all of the soft costs are completed, right? That the formal design process is completed, and essentially the project is ready for construction. Partial funding from the City of Vista to develop a shovel-ready project would be preferred. We can go to the next slide. I also want to acknowledge that we have anticipated improvements in that area from Camino Corto Apartments. You can see there's a small cutout of the map there in the orange rectangular area. That is property that is owned by a developer who put in a pre-application for 24 apartment units that would be 100% affordable, and this development would include infrastructure improvements, including the front sidewalk of the property. So because this application is pending, we can assume that these improvements could coincide with City of Vista improvements to the sidewalks in the area. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So with the consideration of a potential applicant, this means that more density is anticipated in the area, and that increases the need for pedestrian improvements. And if their application is approved, the developer could be a partner in the sidewalk improvements, reducing the overall cost for the city. However, after speaking with our city staff and being a participant in many projects that the City of Vista has successfully completed, I think that the best path forward would be to first allocate $201,000 from the 2023 year-end fund balance for the planning and design of sidewalks on Plymouth Drive. That funding source has a $400,000 balance, and that would be what we use to get the plan to be a shovel-ready project. In addition to that, I would recommend that we formally notice residents in proximity of the project for a community planning meeting so that we can anticipate any issues, if there's issues with parking, if we anticipate that there are more pedestrian crossings needed, even more lighting in the area, a variety of enhancements that could affect the project. We want to know about those as soon as possible. I would also move to direct staff to apply for available grants and include Plymouth Drive sidewalks on state and federal earmark requests, which we will be speaking about upcoming. And finally, I would want to collaborate with the development applicant and coordinate the schedule of sidewalk improvements completed by the city with sidewalk improvements completed by the developer. Many of the times these projects don't coincide perfectly, but if we could have as much coordination with the developer as possible so that if their application is approved and they do intend to build sidewalks in that area, that we can have a completed corridor there for our residents. And the final slide I'll show you, so this is not just an opportunity to show off my beautiful dog, but this was Honey, and she was sitting where the sidewalk ends. And I thought that this was a great illustration of what it looks like on Plymouth Drive, right? A lot of people are using this area. I wanted to give a couple of statistics that I forgot to mention. One was that in this census tract, there are 5,144 residents that are served. And on Plymouth Drive, there's an estimated 2,500 vehicle trips per day. So it's an active area. The enhancements would be very welcomed by the community. And I also believe that it coincides with our city goals, the first of which and the most important is public safety. Being able to improve our built infrastructure so that people can walk and enjoy their neighborhoods and access the different commerce in the area and schools in the area safely should be our number one priority. This could also be considered a climate and environmental responsibility. Improving our built environment, it does give people more options. I always say you shouldn't have to be forced to get in your car in order to cross the street. By enhancing our built environment, by connecting our neighborhoods and building more sidewalk infrastructure, we are essentially giving people more choices to be able to not use their car as much. They can walk, they can ride their bike. And when I was walking Honey on Plymouth, it was hard to maneuver, right? And so we want people to enjoy their environment, and one of the ways we can do that is by building our infrastructure. And finally, traffic. One of our city goals is to continue to improve the flow of traffic for all forms of travel, reduce congestion, and improve our roads and sidewalks. And the proximity of this street to the Vista Transit Station is very significant. Not only are you going to be finding major bus routes there, it's also connected to the Sprinter. And essentially, we could be connecting those residents to a mobility hub at the Vista Transit Center that could really allow them to go anywhere. We want to give people more options than they have, and considering the potential development of this area and the continued growth of this area, I think it's important for us to anticipate those changes and try to improve our sidewalk infrastructure as much as possible. So that would be the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to have a discussion and talk about different options and how everybody feels about this proposal. But I'm doing my part to advocate for the residents there off of Plymouth Drive and see what our city can do to improve the infrastructure for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this item forward. So, if I'm understanding correctly, your recommendations, it would be to cover these soft costs. And I guess this question is also for the city manager. So I see Deputy Mayor's one of the recommendations is formally notice residents in proximity for a community planning meeting. Is that something that would be required for us to be competitive in a grant? For a grant?
Yeah, most likely, if we're going to apply for a grant, we're going to have some community outreach be part of that application.
Does it matter when in the timeline we do the?
Well, closer to the grant application is ideal, but no, it can be, timed out.
Okay, so we could potentially, we could have multiple meetings, right?
Sure. Just
Okay.
like we're doing for Emerald, similar.
Okay. Okay. So I'm curious about the development that's pending, because that's a large part of this one section on Plymouth that they could take care of. What's the time frame? Let's say if we were to allocate funding for planning and design, I guess, would that get in the way of holding the developer accountable?
No, the developer would be responsible for putting the sidewalks in at the time their project is constructed as a condition of approval. Our construction of sidewalks out there wouldn't change anything. We wouldn't recommend constructing in front of that property until we know for sure if their development's going to move forward, since they'll do it. We could do something temporary if council wants, but it won't affect our sidewalk decision.
So potentially we could do something temporary on it. It almost looks like there's two sections, right? So I'm just going to talk about this one other section.
Yeah, so we called it the north and the south side.
Okay.
From Knoll, from the top of the hill.
Okay, so north side is the development potential. Okay. So the north side, we could potentially do a temporary improvement on that side and then focus on the hard improvements, full improvements on the south side. Would that be something that you would recommend?
Sure, it depends on the timing of the council's desire to have sidewalks out there. So
Okay.
if it's hard to know when this development project's going to move forward, and what time frame it would take them to develop their project. The city's perspective from my side would be to wait until the development goes in, and when they do that, we build out the rest of the sidewalks. Then we don't spend money in front of a project that's going to come and rip it out and put in the full permanent sidewalks. But it's at council's discretion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And there's nothing that there's no process where we can say, okay, we're going to approve this end developer because we made improvements in front of your property. You have to pay us X amount, right?
No.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm supportive of creating a design. I think that looking at where this is located, there is a really high potential for us to be able to get some kind of grant funding. Yeah, okay. Okay, those are my questions for now. Thank you.
I'm going to offer a thought here, which is I think it's a great idea to build this sidewalk, and I'd like to support it at some point. I think we should bring this back when we get to the year-end fund balance, and we can lay out all of our spending priorities, and I think this would be a great thing to consider at that time when we know how much excess money we have. One of the things I'm concerned about, though, I've just asked the city manager to put on our next agenda a discussion about where our employees' pay is at. We know that as of our last calculation, our firefighters were 3% below inflation. A lot of our employees here at City Hall are 6% behind. We don't know exactly what those numbers are right now. We've had some increase in revenues because of inflation. I would like to make sure that we continue to chip away at the deficit that our employees have been handed because of inflation. It means that they can buy fewer gallons of gasoline and fewer loaves of bread with the same dollar that they could the year before, especially at a time when our revenues may have been increased by the same force of inflation. So I'd like to prioritize that and some other things. And so one of the things we've been doing is kind of spending money as we go, which is very atypical of how we've done things in the last 11 years that I've been around. But if we kind of build these projects up and then we get to the year-end fund balance and we work towards them, and then we can kind of see all the different priorities at once, and then we can decide which things are the most important things to do. So that would be my recommendation. We'll go back to Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the motion that I would put forward would be from the presentation underneath recommendations. And that includes allocating around $200,000 from the 2023 year-end fund balance, of which from the 2023 year-end fund balance, we had allocated most of it to a number of priorities, including a different sidewalk infrastructure improvement. But there is still a $400,000 balance remaining from 2023 that I would like to prioritize for sidewalk improvements to this area. I understand there are a number of different priorities, and that's why I think it's really important to bring these conversations back to city goal discussions that we have. And I would, continue to say that this is an important project, and by funding the soft costs, we can actually make the most out of our funding that's available. Had this census tract not be so eligible for grants and such a specific area, we might want to take a different strategy as to how we fund it. But because it is highly competitive based on demographics, I think that we can really set ourselves up for success and make the most out of our funding available if we do fund the soft costs for a shovel-ready plan. And so I appreciate all the questions, and I would continue to assert my motion, which is to allocate the $200,000 to notice the residents and begin community planning, to seek out available grants and submit earmark requests, and to collaborate with the future applicant. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. I really want to support this because I do think it's a good idea. I like the area that it's in. I have some concerns on my end, and just it's information that I would like to see or have in order to try and move this thing forward. So I noticed that you had put in 2 different schools on your presentation. Do we know if this is an active school route for children that utilize this space, or does anybody know?
We haven't done any pedestrian counts out here for this. It was just, added as a request of Deputy Mayor, but whatever the council would like in the way of data, we'll follow direction received this evening.
So I'd like to know about that. I would like pedestrian counts. I'd also like cyclist counts. I'd like to know how active this street is. It's not to say I won't support it. It's just information that helps me decide whether or not I want to allocate funding to something. And also, as far as competitive aspect, do you have an opinion on how competitive we would be for federal grants or state grants on this? Or is there somebody that might?
I think the fact that it's in a disadvantaged community area gives it a fairly competitive advantage. I can't guarantee we'll get funding, but if we do have a final engineering design prepared and it's shovel ready, I think it's fairly competitive.
And these are concrete sidewalks? Correct, Dan? I don't know if the deputy mayor would be open to this or not, and because I do want to support it, but I would like to see if we can bring it back and just have that discussion with some more information around it, and perhaps see if that can move this needle forward, so we can either allocate the $201,000 and just see what that would look like, right? I mean, I'm all for public safety and infrastructure. I talk about it all the time. I've supported the majority of projects that we've had come before us, but without knowing how active this street is beyond the 2,500 car count, I don't know if we've had any resident requests for this. Do we have any resident requests?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So those are just some of the things I'd like to see, but I want to be very supportive of this, so those are my comments from now.
Councilmember Contreras.
I'm wondering if it would be possible I'm hearing, the concerns. I'm not too concerned about what's been brought up, but I'm wondering if we could at least start by directing staff to apply, to formally notice residents in proximity for community planning meeting. I think that doing some of the community outreach here, I know folks that live on Plymouth, and this is something that they've asked for. I don't know a ton of people on there, but I have talked to 2 individuals just throughout the time that I've been a council member. So I know that this is something that they would like. Of course, any area that has density that isn't well connected to the rest of the infrastructure, folks are going to want that connection, because a sidewalk is much safer than no sidewalk. So I'm wondering if, at minimum, we can get a community meeting together, and I think directing staff to apply and putting this into the state and federal earmark requests would be good. And then, the only thing on this list that, which is probably the most important thing that I'm not hearing a ton of support for, is allocating the 2023 year-end fund balance, which the council said, listen, we don't exactly know how we want to spend this when we were having that initial discussion, so we're going to roll it forward. And if there's any priorities that folks want to bring forward to use this balance, then, we would do that as we went along. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing here. But I'm wondering if we can get some of these other things done if there's not consensus on allocating the funds. I'm okay with allocating the funds to have a competitive design. I know sometimes this takes a long time. I mean, the ATP grant for town site in West Los Angeles and parts of North Santa Fe is barely going into construction. So, and I think that started in 2017. So that's where I just I feel like there's opportunity costs. These things just keep getting more and more expensive to build. And the design for the engineering final designs for things are just, are they continuing to go up too? I mean, these are pretty high costs.
We're generally seeing like 20% of a project, cost is soft costs. It's pretty typical across the board, but the construction costs are rising, so those costs are rising too.
Okay, because it's fixed too. I mean, that's where I just feel like saying I second this, because $201,000, I hear these other, priorities that our mayor brought up, and I don't think that allocating, about half of this balance is going to make it difficult for us to have a really good discussion in the future about other priorities that might come forward. So I'll go ahead and just second the motion, because costs keep rising and the need is still going to be here. And I do really want to be competitive. The more projects that we can get to shovel ready, the more we can put on our requests for state and federal earmarks, and that we can, outside of that, have other mechanisms to apply for grants. So I'll go ahead and second the motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I couldn't help myself. This is an opportunity zone, correct? One of the last opportunity zones in the county of San Diego. There's only 2 opportunity zones in the county of San Diego, this one that's left in Vista and one that's left in Escondido. Is it safe to say that, seeing this is the only opportunity zone other than Escondido in San Diego County, developers are attracted to this area because they can densify by right?
That's safe to say, sure.
And it's close to mass transit. So over the next, when you talk about our general plan and our 2050 plan, I personally think this is a horrible allocation of funds up until the point that the developer decides what they're going to do. They have 24 units. What's the development impact fee per unit for a road?
It's based on the number of, actually, it's square footage of the project.
Okay.
But typically, a project like that is going to pay a development impact fee somewhere in the range of like $500,000 to $750,000.
So it's about 25,000 per unit per se. I mean, for all the fees, maybe 7,000 to 10,000 for traffic out of that per unit. Okay, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is if there's 24 units at 7,000 per unit, that's a dent in what we can pay. That fee could pay for the design. Additionally, I don't remember saying if there's $400,000 left over, if anybody wants to spend it, let us know what you want to spend it on. I feel like, when speaking with the mayor, inflation's a huge thing, and any funds, I mean, we have our unions coming to us all the time asking for pay increases and inflation, and I feel like no residents have asked for this. I've never received an email about it. I've been on the council for 8 years. I've lived in Vista 40 years, and I've never heard of anybody actually asking for it. So to do it as like a sense of urgency, like let's spend the money right now, I really feel like is putting the city in a tough spot because we could use that money for something else that comes up immediately or allocate it for something else. I just don't think spending money on the design is something we need to do at this point. I really think that developers are going to do those improvements. Before I would even vote to allocate funding on it, I'd want to know, is it designated as a safe route to school? You want to use it and say, hey, it's something that kids are using to go to school. Does Vista Unified School District support sidewalks? They may. And do they recognize this as a safe route to school and a route to transit? How many pedestrian counts are there? How many bicycle counts are there? If we put the sidewalks in, what does the design look like? What does the bike lane look like? Is it a protected bike lane? So there's a lot of questions before I would approve any type of funds relating to it, and I really feel like it should be an end-of-the-year spending project. If we are constantly spending money that's not allocated every single meeting, at the end of the year, we're going to not have any surplus spending money. So I really feel like we do need to prioritize spending much better than we're doing right now, and spending money on a design on sidewalks, just because we have the money doesn't seem like a really good fiscal use of funds to me. So it's something that I definitely would need more information on until we know that it's something we need. Spending $200,000 on it or agreeing 100% to spend $200,000 without having answers to the questions seems like a lot. In addition, if there were some residents that, you spoke with that wanted to come, that's cool too. And I'm also against a city community meeting on it. I'm not here to run anybody's election campaign, and I feel like that's more what that is. If we're not allocating funds to it, why would we want to have a, community meeting on something we may not be funding if a developer is going to fund it? So I think we just kind of hold off on it, wait till the end of the year, and, move forward because this doesn't seem like it's a priority. I don't know any pedestrians that have got struck on Plymouth Drive. Like, let's get all that information. Let's see, because the urgency is something that I'm feeling, but it's something I'm not seeing. And I think that's really what I want to see is what's the urgency of spending the money right now without the information just because the money's here. So that's where I'm at.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
How long would it take for design and construction, cradle to grave, all the way done for a project like this?
Probably 18 months, I'm going to guess.
Okay. And how long would it take to get a pedestrian count and bicycle count or cyclist count?
We would have to get those from our consultant. I'm looking at Sam back there. What are you saying, Greg? 2 months.
So I would agree to direct staff for state and federal earmarks to see if we can get that, but I would just like more information on this. I am not saying no to it. I'm not a hard no to it at all. And if the deputy mayor would agree to it, I would just like to table it for maybe until we can get this information back and bring it back forward. Because I'm not trying to stop this, but I definitely want more information before I can say, yes, let's spend $200,000 on it and move it forward. And that's where I'm at it. I think it is a good project, but I'd like to know if it's used by school children. I would like to know the pedestrian counts. I'd like to know all that information that's just not here right now to make that decision. So if you're open to it, I'd love to hear your comments on it.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I would just like to address a couple of the comments that were made. I'm definitely not recommending that we spend the $400,000 balance that's from year-end fund balance 2023 just because we have it. I've identified Plymouth Drive as a priority because I have had conversations with residents of Plymouth Drive. In fact, one of our safety commissioners lives on Plymouth Drive. And I am, getting communication that there might not be an interest in allocating funding toward the planning and design of sidewalks in this area. So I'm willing to talk about that. After my comments, I do want to, make the vote occur where there was a motion and a second. And if it doesn't pass, then I can absolutely propose something different. But I'm also a little surprised at the lack of support because historically, when I've seen some of these types of projects go through, not necessarily only at a year-end fund balance discussion, I think that these conversations can happen at any time. And this is just the funding source that I identified as being somewhat available. This is the first time I'm really hearing a thoughtfulness around the criteria that we use to determine how we are going to fund programs and projects in some parts of the community versus others. And I also want to make a comment about the opportunity zone, that it could be a very, very long time before a developer takes responsibility and wants to develop and purchase a property that's already developed and redevelop it into something that would require them to put new sidewalk enhancements there. In fact, many of the areas where sidewalks would be placed are actually single-family homes. And part of this is to provide infrastructure improvements to the community before there's a great amount of development. Because we want to preserve our neighborhoods for the long term. I would be so devastated if the homes that are on Plymouth Drive, closest to Vista Village, are bought up by developers, converted into dense, for-profit apartment dwellings, and then, okay, eventually they'll put sidewalks in. And who's to say how long we have to wait for a developer to come in and take care of this infrastructure need for our community? I see the development happening all around this area, right? It's coming, all the way from Vista Village area. There's concerns along Vista Way. There's concerns, all the way to Oceanside, right? And into the center of town, into Vista. This abuts our downtown. And so I think that regardless of the decision here tonight, it's very clear that our council needs to maybe come together and start to develop a framework for how we approve projects and why, so that we can really have that consistency for our community. But I would say one of my guiding values is that I don't necessarily want to wait for private industry to make our community good. We are a public agency, and I want to take responsibility for our duty to provide quality infrastructure to the residents of Vista. And all that said, if I don't have support on getting funding for planning and design, which I think is a strategic way to stretch our funding and to get more bang for our buck, if I don't have support for that, that is okay. I think it will still be of value to direct staff to apply for grants without having a shovel-ready plan, and to include Plymouth Drive on federal earmark requests. I still hope that we're competitive, maybe not as competitive, but I think we could be still competitive. And of course, we have the opportunity to collaborate with developers. But I really want to make improvements to our community on our time frame and what we know is best for our community, versus on the time frame of private landowners who are going to make decisions based on where the profit is for them and not necessarily on how to move people through our community safely. I would highly want to enhance this particular part of Vista because it's about, for me, creating connected corridors where we have folks in this neighborhood who have to stumble through poor infrastructure to make it to the Vista Transit Station. I live a block or two away from here. So it's definitely close to my heart. It's definitely close to my experience. And I understand the value of it, even if other people don't. And I totally understand there's a difference of perspective. And if you don't think it's a good use of money, I can appreciate that. But I want to lay out all my arguments so people know why I'm advocating for this. I also want to make a comment about having public meetings. So I want to make it clear that activities here are not campaign related. City manager, are we able to have community meetings on different topics as council members? Are we able to work with our city staff to hold community meetings, even if the council as a whole hasn't allocated funding to that activity?
Yes.
Okay. So I regardless of support for funding tonight, I would still want to, get neighbors in a room together and make sure, hey, do we have our parking issues sorted out? Is this the right area for sidewalks? Should we do it on the west side, right? Like being able to work out through all of those things, because meeting with the public is just one of our most important duties, and I want to make sure that I do that. So I'll go ahead and, I see some other folks in the queue want to speak. At any point, if we want to call for the vote, I think that would be appropriate. We can vote on this item that includes funding, and if it doesn't pass, then, hey, let's talk about how we're going to set up a rubric for the future so that we're as consistent and reliable to the public. And then, we can provide direction without funding. Any effort tonight from me is a win for the folks on Plymouth because I'm trying to elevate their concerns to this level. I think this is one of the neighborhoods that feels like they've been forgotten about. So hopefully next time we can get more people from Plymouth here. People are busy, working really hard and have very busy, challenging lives. So, it can be an ongoing conversation. I'm very much open to that.
For myself, I just want to reiterate that I support the project. I think we ought to have sidewalks on every residential street in Vista. And unfortunately, a lot of Vista was developed in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It wasn't until the 1980s that we started requiring developers to build sidewalks along with their projects. So about half of our city doesn't have sidewalks, and that's a problem, and it's a safety issue. But I don't know, and I would like to see staff, do we have a priority list? We have a priority list for our signals. Do we have a priority list for sidewalks?
No.
See, I'd like us as a council, and Deputy Mayor Melendez said, I wrote this down because I really agreed with it, that we should have a framework for how we approve projects and why. And you see, I really agree because I'm just going to call it right out. I think y'all are approving stuff willy-nilly because you want to spend money in your districts, and that's okay. You should be looking for what's priority for your districts. And I salute that and I applaud that, and I commend you for doing that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's right in what you should be doing. But the concern I have is when we don't take all of our needs as a city and lay them on the table and compare them to one another, like any family or any business or any other organization that spends money would do, when we just pull one shiny object out and go, ooh, this one's pretty, we should take all of these projects, be it signals, be it sidewalks, any of these good priorities should be methodically ranked based on safety, need, based on available dollars. And again, like any business or family here in our city, we should make sure that we pay our employees fairly first, that we cover the cost of inflation with cost of living adjustments if needed, so that we don't take excess dollars that came to us from inflation and act like we stumbled across a $20 bill on the sidewalk and go, oh, I can buy something with this. No, we found that money in our budget because of inflation, and it's the righteous thing for us to do for our employees, to remember them that they can't buy as much as they could buy the year before because of that same force that increased our budget, and to make sure that we fairly compensate them first. And then once we've taken care of our people here, then we look at the money that we have left over. And even if this is last year's year-end money that you're targeting with us, I still think at this point we should have a whole conversation about, and we're about to have a conversation about our priorities. And I love the idea of including this as an earmark request. All I'm looking for is process here. I'm going to be gone at some point. You're going to inherit this dais. And I would ask every one of you and the people who come after me and us to have a process for which we create, priorities. And for something to be a priority doesn't mean it's priority number one, right? It might be a true priority, but it might not be as important as something else. So that's why we need, and we have a lot of very important competing priorities. That's why we need to have a conversation where we actually have, like you said, Deputy Mayor, that framework for how we approve projects and why. And we need to have a priority list. I think this should be added to that list. I don't know where it goes on that list, but I think it would be good, and I think it's appropriate under this item for us to give direction to staff to create. We should have a list of streets that need intersections, and it should start with where disadvantaged children walk into school. That should be number one. That should be the first place. So I don't want to build a half mile on Plymouth until I've built every route where it's highly trafficked by children going to school. That's what I want to do first in terms of sidewalk dollars. And I don't know if this is or isn't that. And I had one other just technical question. What might the shelf life be on the soft work here? Because sometimes when we engineer something and then we don't get the money, sometimes it's good forever, sometimes it's not, and you wind up having to do half of it over again.
Yeah, for a sidewalk, it's good
It's
for
good
a
forever.
while.
It's
and
durable.
Not too
Good.
difficult.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's go to Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yeah, I want to be clear before I cast my vote. I don't see the lack of value or lack of vision in this. I actually think, again, it's a good project. There's just information that for me is not there for me to move forward with it. To the point of previous projects, and I know that this was not directed at me, but when the community input's there, like for Matticwall or for the traffic signal, even the sidewalks that I've tried to approve, like I've had people that have submitted to the city, like Mattigwall, we all know, people fought for 15 years. I mean, I'm sure there was people emailing the city all the time. The traffic light that I went for, I know that's the first question I asked Sam was, how many of these have we received over the last 5 years? So for me to have that input, I think is very valuable. But I am going to defend you on something because I host town halls all the time where I have community discussions with people about projects that I would either like to see brought forward that are going to be coming before the council. And I think that it is imperative for us to be able to do our job to have those meetings. So whether it's an election year or not, I'm going to defend you on that because I think that those meetings are necessary for us to make the most informed decision when we're up here. So, but again, right now, like it's something that I want to support. I don't have the information to allocate $200,000 to it, which is why I was asking if we could table it until we can get that information. But if that's something that we can't do, I'm not there yet. But I definitely hope it does come back so we can support it in the future because it is something that I agree with that would probably be a very good project so long as the information lines up with it.
I would just point out that about 6 or 7 years ago, the minority was not able to use the facilities, and I advocated and was the leader of the effort to allow council members to use the facilities for those meetings. And I agree. I think it's important for us to be able to hold meetings with the community. So just want to second what you're saying there. Councilmember Green.
Yeah, and let me just be clear on my statement too. When it comes to community meetings, every council person should be able to do their job and have community meetings. Every council person should be walking neighborhoods, knocking on doors, putting flyers on car windshields when they have discussion items they want to bring forward. Additionally, I thought we had a policy in place when it comes to discussion items. I'm a little off put because I just got your slideshow this evening. And when we do discussion items and we know we're having things on the agenda, I always have mine on a week before. I know that used to be the policy. I'm sure they didn't have that policy, but it's hard for me to look at something the second I sit down at 5:30, you asking for $200,000 and some odd the night that I was here. And I don't have any time to see what you're asking for or anything. So when we're looking at framework for projects, I'd also like to have framework for discussion items. If we're going to have discussion items as a council, we should be selling those. This is a great slideshow. I would have loved to have it a week ago, you know? So I want to make sure that when we do stuff like this, I know what we're discussing because that's a big deal. When it comes to community meetings, my statement was that I don't want to have a city meeting about Plymouth sidewalks, okay? If you want to have a council member District 3 meeting on Plymouth sidewalks, that's fine. But it was in the motion, or, you know, and spoken from Councilmember Contreras, that if we don't get funding, we should have a city meeting about it. So all I was saying is I don't want to use any city staff dollars on passion projects for council members per se. If you want to have a city meeting and go to your district and say, hey, I want to have a District 3 Councilmember Melendez meeting about that, it can be in a city facility, you can do your stuff, but it should be directed by you, not directed by the body as a whole. I'm just saying as the body as a whole, I don't agree to have that particular community meeting. Have anything you want, but as a body as a whole, we should be directing general plan workshops. We should be directing public workshops. As a body as a whole, I don't want to have a community meeting on your streets project. So that's what I was saying. Please, by all means. But also, when you're going to bring a discussion item forward, please bring stuff. I would really like it. So I'm all into having your, community meetings as a council person. I think you should do that. As far as this goes, I do support this, but there is clearly not enough information. And when we talk about shovel-ready projects, Councilmember Contreras, who helped get buses over to Rancho Minerva Middle School, I was on the Safe Routes to School Commission 20 years ago building that Safe Routes to School. And there's a lot of stuff, crosswalks, there's so many kids that walk there, and that could be a priority too. So I definitely support what the mayor is saying and what you're saying with framework for projects. When I had my city meeting with our city manager, I asked, do we have a priority list for sidewalks? Where's the most needed sidewalk in Vista? Just like, where's the most needed stoplight in Vista? And I think allocating funding to get that brought to the council is something that should be a priority so that we never have a, argument about, hey, we shouldn't be putting sidewalks on this road or on this road. We can all see this is where it's needed. This is where pedestrians are using it. This is where our kids are gonna be the most adversely affected and the most in danger. And if Plymouth Drive is that street, by all means, we need to fix it, but we have to see the data. So I won't be voting for the motion, but I wanted to clarify, please keep having community meetings on your own. When it comes to a body as a city, we have lots of public workshops, and we should continue to do so. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
I just wanted to see if I could get some clarification. Where it does state formally notice residents in proximity for a community planning meeting, how would you make that different for it to honor Councilmember Green's? I just don't get how one thing is different than the other. Or is there a difference between what he's saying and what is one of these recommendations? I'm asking the city manager.
I think what we're assuming this says is that we would hold a meeting that staff would organize and prepare and help run. I think what Councilman Green was referring to was something that would be done by the council member and not by staff.
So using the Beaubier roundabouts as an example, there wasn't approval from the body to do that, but that was something that we still did.
Yes, so we've been directed to apply for the active transportation grant that's coming up for Caltrans. The community meeting's a requirement for that, so we organized and prepared and held that meeting.
So this project itself, could that be for an active transportation grant?
Sure.
So then there would be no difference.
If the council directed us tonight to apply for an ATP grant for this particular project and put some resources into that, including, holding a community meeting, we could do that. If the direction was just hold a community meeting and see what people think, we can do that too. It's just, it's council's direction.
Okay, yeah, because what I'm hearing from you, Councilmember Green, is like there's this huge distinction between but there actually is not. There's not a huge distinction. So, because let me just ask you, city manager, if this actually helps to connect to my district. So if this is a project that I wanted and I brought forward and I said, even if I never brought it forward to the council, and in our little sessions that we have together, I go, hey, I want to have a community meeting for these sidewalks. Do I need to get any of these people involved in order for staff to do that?
No, not as long as I'm willing to help you do that. I mean, the city manager directs staff resources, so sure, if a council member's asking for a community meeting for something that is typical for us to do, yes, I would provide those resources.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to highlight the point that there's not like this huge stark difference between what's in the recommendation and what we can do. I think it's actually great that Deputy Mayor is bringing this forward to see if there is consensus from the council. She could just do this on her own if she wanted to. But, for some reason, there's, a lot of like emotions about bringing an ATP project forward that connects residents to an economic center, the downtown, to transportation at the transit center, and connects to 3 districts. Is that 3? 2 districts. So anyway, I've walked in this area before. It's absolutely horrible to walk in. I'm not exactly sure. It just seems like people, like, I don't get it. Would we be able to apply? You can.
Why'd you keep thinking you're done?
Yeah, I'm not done. That's why I'm still talking. So is there the ability to apply for an ATP grant, or has that already gone and passed? What's the time frame for that?
No, there's the grant application period's coming soon. I believe it's like in April or May. Right now, we're planning on submitting Emerald again and Beaubier.
Right. And in discussions about the ATP grant, I was concerned, like, hey, if we have 2 projects from Vista, does that mean that we have less of a chance for our projects? But I was reassured by your statement to me that it's done, they're scored individually. So potentially, we could move this project for ATP grant funding, have 3 projects submitted for the city of Vista that are in disadvantaged communities, and have a chance that one of them, if not all of them, are funded. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't know if we have enough time to get this project into the ATP cycle for this next round. I can talk to my staff and follow up with you on that. But yes, that's feasible if we have time to submit.
Okay. And would that have to come back to the body? Let me just say, like, we have this motion a second on the floor. It doesn't seem like there's majority support for it. If there's not, do we still have the ability to try and pursue an ATP grant, or do we have to bring that back to council to have a majority that supports this being an ATP grant?
We would need that because we would have to adopt a resolution for the ATP grant application from the council submitting the application.
Okay. So and this might be for the city attorney, so with this project in front of us as listed in the agenda, would we be able to provide staff recommendation that we add this to our ATP grant project list?
We're going to need to agendize that.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, I'm trying to see what all the options are depending on, what the final vote is. I want to be as competitive for state money. Some people say we're spending willy-nilly. We've actually been able to have a lot of shovel-ready projects in order to get more state and federal funding, which is us just getting tax dollars back to Vista, which is not a practice that we've had. We have not been good as in previous councils in having shovel-ready projects, which is why we had such a hard time when we had Assemblymember Berner Horvath asking us for a project list, and the city didn't really have anything to show and was, hesitant to move forward. And we've gotten into a place where we've been able to bring projects forward, have a majority of the council support the design work, and potentially be able to bring in a whole bunch of new infrastructure that we pay a fraction for. So I want you all to think about that too. Anyways, that's all.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Do any of you guys at your council meetings held by council members have staff formally notice residents in proximity of the location? No, you do not. So this is the request: is can we formally notice residents in proximity for community planning meeting? Like, when this is more of how you, when you notice a community about a project, right? You're required to send out letters to the community because you're changing something in your neighborhood. That is different than a city council district meeting. Am I correct in saying that? It is very different. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Very different, because this is a state requirement to have a meeting for a project that's being done. So this is what I'm not okay with. I don't understand how you don't understand. You've been doing this for a long time. Like, when we have development meetings, you notify people in proximity. That was the request. And that's what I'm not okay with. So that's it. I'm just saying this is not how council people's meetings are done. I mean, we may have a majority of the council that want to change that to say, hey, let's spend city money notifying all residents within a half mile of the Gloria McClellan Center. We're having a meeting on this night. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But currently, that's not the policy. So my statement was, I don't approve this. Like, we shouldn't be spending staff money formally noticing district meetings. And I don't think we have in the past, and I don't think that's our policy to do so. So I don't know why we're making such a big deal about it. That's the only thing that's different, and that is a different way to request a meeting. And I've never requested a community meeting like this. So that's the difference. That was my only thing. I'm ready for the vote. I think we know how the vote's going to go, but we shall see. Thank you.
I would just add, we have a communication budget and policy that's been approved by the council. So if members want to send invitations, they have a budget to do that for the printing and the postage. Every council member has $2,500 to spend for that purpose. So, Councilmember Contreras.
I think I might blow your mind right now, Councilmember Green, but I received a beautiful letter in the mail, and unfortunately we had to cancel this event, but and I don't think we ever took a vote on it, but there was a mailing that went out to District 1 residents regarding the taco truck and open house for the Little House at Luz Duran Park. And I don't know if any of you all knew about that. So the city attorney is, I just want to ask you, like, was that something that we weren't able to do because we didn't get direction from the council, or?
That was a notification for a park project that's currently in our CIP, so that was a city-initiated.
Councilmember Green, can you please be quiet while I'm listening? Okay, you don't have the mic right now. Thank
So
you.
the flyer that went out that you're referring to was for a capital project that we're working on at Luz Duran Park. It was just a flyer to the neighborhood city-run meeting to get input back on what the residents want to see with respect to changes to the park.
Okay, and then for the town, the Beau Beer, was there a mailing for that?
Yes.
Okay. But was there consensus from the council to do the ATP for that?
It's part of the ATP grant application, so we did get approval from council to pursue that grant application.
Okay. So I just stand by the fact that I think this needs to be an ATP project. So anyways.
Councilmember Green.
I apologize again. The reason why this can't be an ATP project is because we haven't approved the design for it, and the design's not approved, and we don't have the time for the design to come in to submit for the ATP grant because it just came in. Is that correct?
Well, so like I said, I'd have to check with staff and
On
confirm
timing, right?
whether or not we'd have sufficient time.
Because I'm cool. I just don't think it's possible. All right, let's vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, that item fails with 2 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstained. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for City Manager. Do we have sufficient information from our internal discussions where I met with city staff to review if it was even, do we have enough land to put sidewalks here? And I will just say, I don't believe this item is done. I can put forward another motion. Is that correct, City Attorney? Mm-hmm. So do we have sufficient information at the staff level to approve a conceptual design tonight with what was described in the presentation?
Yes, I believe we do.
Okay. So I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the design for sidewalks on Plymouth Drive and to direct staff to apply for all available grants and to include Plymouth Drive sidewalks on state and federal earmark requests. And that will be my motion. And I'll also say two things. First, I am not discouraged by the lack of participation from my community on Plymouth today. As you saw from the census information, this is a disadvantaged community. And as a person who represents a disenfranchised community, I have come to expect that those families are in fact disenfranchised. And a symptom of that disenfranchisement is that they are not able to participate. Therefore, I represent a disenfranchised community, and I have come to expect that those community members who are disenfranchised may not show up to the meetings. That is a privilege to be here, and I'm very grateful to represent them. Secondly, I do not have unilateral authority to spend public dollars. We get to make that decision as a group here on the council. And having feedback really does help me, and it allows me to better perform my duties within the confines that this council outlines for me. So hearing the discussion, it sounds like there is absolutely an interest in developing more of a strategic planning model when it comes to some of our infrastructure improvements. And I feel now very motivated to put forward concepts of projects and improvements that I think would be valuable, and understand that while the council might not be receptive to funding those projects, it would be very appropriate to at least bring those discussions up to a public level so that it can be public what projects are of concern for my district. So I feel very motivated to do that. I understand what the the workflow of our council is. I appreciate everyone's feedback, and the feedback really does help me and motivate me to perform my duties to the best of my ability. Thank you.
So did your motion include the $201,000 expenditure?
It did not.
It did not? Okay, so when you said approve a design, what does that mean to staff?
Conceptual plan that was estimated for the purpose of this discussion item. We prepared an estimate for a sidewalk on the east side of the street that would run the length of the street.
So we have a conceptual that could be accepted as an ATP application.
For the most, I don't know about ATP. They require a little higher level of design, but there are other grants out there that we can apply for with just a description and a cost estimate.
Okay.
So what I'd really like to see us do is, because we've been, we're 100 years old now as a community. We've been building homes here for 100 years. So this is not a new problem. It's not one that just jumped up and bit us. I would like to see us develop a sidewalk priority list where we can start with Plymouth as the first project listed on it, since you brought it forward tonight. And then we can continue to add other projects. And as was discussed, I think we add the safe routes to schools first, and we figure out if we can only afford to build a half mile or a mile of sidewalks, where is it in the city that it would do the greatest good to promote safety, and particularly of underprivileged children in areas where they're disadvantaged, to provide them that step up to have a sidewalk to get to school. I would want that to be first. I mean, obviously, you may have other priorities, but I think we should have a priority list for sidewalks, and I think that should include what we're asking for money for, from our state and federal lawmakers, because we just don't know that this is the highest ranking priority that we have with regard to sidewalks. We have many miles of streets in our community that don't have sidewalks. District 1 has a lot of lack of sidewalk. And so I just think that we should make a holistic, like you said, we should make a framework for how we, decide these projects and not approve them one-off like this. But I think when council members identify a need within their district, then they should bring it forward. I think you did a phenomenal job with the presentation. And so I say, bring it forward and say, I'd like to add this to the list of traffic signals, or add it to the list of where we need sidewalks, or whatever it parks, whatever. We should have a list of each of these priorities. And then when we get to a certain point in the year, after we've paid for our necessary expenditures, like taking care of our employees and other things, then when we really know what's left over for the year, then I think we should really look at all these lists of projects where we have priorities, and we should really ask ourselves which ones have percolated to the very top of the priority list, and then we should address those things one at a time that are the most important. You want to make sure if your washing machine doesn't work, you want to get a new washing machine before you pay for a trip to Hawaii, right? I mean, we all want to go on a trip to Hawaii, but we got to have a washing machine to wash our clothes. So this is, how a family in our city would operate, is to have both things are important. I mean, going on vacation is important for a family, but it may not be as important as being able to wash your clothes. We don't know, if we don't put all the priorities on a list, because we have so many as an organization, we don't know which priorities are actually the most important. But what we do know, and we're absolutely sure of, and there's no debate about it by any reasonable person on this council, we have a finite amount of dollars for an almost infinite amount of needs and priorities. Let's see, let's go to Councilmember Contreras.
Just a question for the city manager. As we're talking about creating some kind of a matrix for sidewalk prioritization as a capital improvement for the city, is that going to be part of our updated mobility element at all? I mean, I thought we were looking at like this master, because I brought it up before, looking at like a master plan for pedestrians and cyclists, but I thought we were going to be creating that.
So we are doing a mobility plan. It will look for transportation connections, but it doesn't get to the level of sidewalks in every residential neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks. So if we want to prepare, I appreciate the mayor's recommendation. I think it's a great idea. It's just that we're going to have to bring in a consultant to help us put together a list of those areas that need sidewalks, and then come back to the council and talk about what are your priorities for how we establish sidewalks, because they're probably not all the same.
So, okay, I guess it's just a technical question then. If we're preparing this mobility element, are we just ignoring the places that don't have sidewalks, or are those going to be identified as like, hey, this is a route that is incomplete?
Yeah, so along our major transportation routes, we'll look at where sidewalk connections need to happen, and they'll be planning for that. But getting into the smaller neighborhoods, we won't go to that level. So along our major arterials primarily and collector streets is where we'll be focusing that effort. In other words, how are people moving through the city?
Right. Is Plymouth, what kind of street is that considered?
It's a local street. I don't think it's any kind of collector.
Okay. It's just kind of a connector.
It's a Vista connector, right?
Yeah, between two areas. Okay. All right. I just wanted to get a better understanding of the work that we're already doing versus the work that needs to be done. I mean, there's so many different priorities. And the Safe Routes to School, that's a Vista Unified School District document, right? That's not our document.
So we did a Safe Routes to School study back in, 2016 or so. We'll go back and revisit that.
Yeah, I can't find it on the city website, which is not a surprise to me.
Yeah,
but
I'll dig it up and send it to everyone. But we do have that study. It probably needs to be updated. It also doesn't get to the level of neighborhood sidewalks and prioritization because it just focused on school sites.
So Safe Routes to School still would not help us figure out Plymouth.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, so, okay. All right, well, there's so much to do on the mobility front for Vista. I mean, as was stated by the mayor, our city grew, different time periods had different growth, and trying to connect it can be difficult. It's capital dollars that, are spread very thin. And I think it is important for us to figure out which sidewalks are, we allocated $1 million to a sidewalk in the year-end fund balance that I just didn't agree that I think Plymouth is used at has a higher utilization of pedestrian, just anecdotally from having walked through here and been through here for my life, than the $1 million that we spent on Sunset. So I don't know. And sometimes it could just be, this whole system process can be a little bit hypocritical, but it's important to be able to have these discussions. And the more information and data points that the council can have, the more, I think, fruitful discussion can be in the future. Because, if we're going to start a priority list for sidewalks, I got a good amount that I'm going to be adding. But I think that there also needs to be an equity prioritization. So I'll just end there. Thank you.
Yeah, there are dirt walking paths on Santa Fe in your district where I know children are walking every single day, and they've cut deep paths. And how honestly could we do Plymouth before we do our arterials where we've got kids walking on deep rutted paths? I mean, we know that's a bigger priority because it's got a higher pedestrian foot count of children in a disadvantaged area. So, I don't want to hire any more $1 million consultants. We can make a list. Every council member, bring the areas in your district. And, I used to represent District 4. We got sidewalks everywhere because it's a master plan area, and we forced the developer to buy them. Homeowners had to pay more because the neighborhood had sidewalks. They paid for that improvement. They're still paying for it. And so District 4 is not going to need a whole lot of sidewalks. It's the other areas of the city that need it. So I think from an equity standpoint, I think you're going to naturally see. So I agree. I mean, that can be part of it because it's just naturally going to be a part of it. You look at the areas that don't have them, it's the areas where they're disadvantaged. So I'd like to make them, if we have we don't need a motion unless we want to, unless you'd like to have a motion on it. But I'd like to give direction to staff to create this priority list. And every time you in your districts, you're the bird dogs for your own districts. When you see something that's a sidewalk or pedestrian safety, we'll just call it pedestrian safety priority list. Every time you find something in your district, bring it to the council. And let's put it on there. And then from time to time, maybe once a year, or as we're looking at that year-end fund balance, let's look at what are really the most impactful. If we're going to add a half mile of sidewalk, where would that be? Because we just can't do it everywhere. It's just too expensive. But let's look at where would it make the most sense and help the most number of kids and others that need it for safety. Councilmember O'Donnell.
I was just going to mention, I don't really want to hire a consultant. I know we talked about that in our meeting. I also don't want to look over the thousands and thousands of miles that we have of needed sidewalks. But I agree with you that if it's our district, and don't forget you still live in District 4, so feel free to drive around and give out proposals. But I'm all for a prioritization list and building some type of matrix for it. You are 100% correct. The reason I fought for sidewalks on Sunset, it is a major arterial road that runs north and south. I see kids and adults and elderly people still walking up and down that road against brushes and bushes. There's nothing between them and the road. So that's why Sunset was so important. And I know that there's disagreement with some individuals on the council, but it also had quadruple the if not more, the amount of traffic that goes down every single day. But regardless, I'm not going to be asking for sidewalks on Bellevue anytime soon, right? Like, it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, there's one area, and we were fortunate in District 4 that we have a lot of planned communities over there. And in the areas that weren't planned, a lot of people do not want sidewalks. But I agree that there is an equity balance that we need to find and make sure that we are going into other districts that have been ignored historically where these sidewalks don't exist. And again, you know, the reason I'm not going to relitigate the reason I abstained, but I don't think it's a bad project. I just want more information. That's all I'm asking for.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember O'Donnell, the information that you're asking for this project is not the same information that you provided for your appeal to us for funding for the $1 million in pedestrian infrastructure that went to Sunset Drive. It is inconsistent, and you may be, you know, lucky that we're having this conversation now, and you were able to secure funding for that passion project. You know, because I see kids and adults on Plymouth too, and elderly people on Plymouth who are trying to connect to transit, who are forced to walk. They don't have a car. They have to walk where they're going. So in this conversation where we're putting together a prioritization list, I haven't gotten a second on my motion, so I will add to the motion to say that I would direct staff to develop a sidewalk infrastructure prioritization list, in addition to directing staff to apply for grants and add Plymouth Drive sidewalks on state and federal earmark requests, and to approve the design, the conceptual design that is provided tonight. But, you know, how committed are we to that equity component? How committed are we to being consistent with our public dollars? Are we willing to look at recently approved plans? You know, Sunset Drive received $1 million in pedestrian infrastructure. We do not know how many pedestrians are really walking in that area. And I'm being expected now to provide information about Plymouth Drive. And that is the reason why Councilmember O'Donnell abstained, is because he needs more information. That same information was not provided when we approved, and I dissented, and I expressed my dissent for approving $1 million in pedestrian infrastructure to Sunset Drive. So City Manager and City Attorney, could you please tell me the status of that $1 million that we allocated to Sunset Drive? Have we paid for design? Have we paid for any engineering? What is the status of that?
No, it's still sitting in a year-end balance account assigned to that project. We haven't begun that project yet.
Okay, so we haven't paid any engineers, we haven't used any particular staff time, we haven't put anything in the ground, we haven't done any construction. Okay, I would also add to my motion that we remove the allocation of $1 million of pedestrian infrastructure from Sunset Drive and add it to the prioritization list along with Plymouth Drive. So our new prioritization list can be Plymouth Drive, Sunset Drive, or it can even be Sunset Drive, Plymouth Drive, right? Whichever one is able to move us forward in discussion tonight. And then we can move forward with actually allocating funding to it in a way that is consistent. And we can make sure that all of the data that we're asking for all of the projects is consistent. So that would be my motion for us to approve the design for Plymouth Drive, to direct staff to apply for grants and earmarks, and to develop a prioritization for sidewalks that would include Plymouth and Sunset, and that we revoke funding from Sunset with the considerations of all of the arguments that we've heard tonight. I really do want us to be by our word on this. We haven't actually spent the money on Sunset Drive. That money is available to be used for increasing our staff retention. We could be putting that $1 million into the pockets of our first responders. Those seem to be the highest prioritizations for our council. And I think it is only fair that the information that is asked of me is asked of all council members for the projects they bring forward.
So, Mayor, can I interject?
Yes, please.
We can't have a vote on revoking Sunset's funding without agendizing it. It's not been publicly noticed, so I would ask the maker of the motion to remove that if she's...
I will remove that. at this time. Thank you.
But I can't help but agree that these should all come and all be holistically reviewed. This is millions of dollars, and I've been getting seriously concerned because every council meeting gets $500,000, $750,000, $1 million.
Put the egos aside and create some better systems.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's do it. And if Plymouth is where we need it, if Sunset's where we need it, boom, that's where it goes. But I think maybe that stretch that I'm thinking of North Santa Fe, I think that's probably actually where we got a lot of disadvantaged children walking to and from school on a dirt path. I mean, if I'm gonna build a mile of sidewalk, that's where I'd like to, I think that might be like in my mind if I could, you know, and I don't know, we need a little bit of, I don't wanna hire $1 million consultant. I'd rather have that. What do we get, a half mile of sidewalk for $1 million? Is that what it is? I'd rather have another half mile of sidewalk than $1 million consultant. But I think we can do so many of these things with staff. And I think we just need to bring our public works team around and our school, and we can have some more community meetings. We can figure out where these, because we know in our districts where these places are. So let's start adding them to the list. I really like this. Let's come up with some metrics. Let's figure out, there's got to be a cheaper way than paying a guy 3 8-hour installments. They have a camera system to count pedestrians?
Yeah.
Maybe? I see a maybe head shake over there. Maybe we can figure, I'm excited. This is good. We're thinking logically about how we set priorities as a community. It's what we should be doing. All politics aside, seriously, all politics aside. I like that a lot. We're getting somewhere. I like it. We're making progress. Councilmember Contreras.
You know, I actually would hate to take money away from something that we already approved, but in the nature of consistency, I think we could have had a much better discussion about prioritization back in what was it, December last year? You know, I wonder if it would be better to have, you know, a motion that states that we would bring back Sunset, we would look at Plymouth, understanding that we can't revoke the money at this time for Sunset, but City Attorney, would we be able to make a motion that states that we want to bring that project back for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if I could second your motion without. Okay, do you have the language about accepting the friendly amendment to bring Sunset back? Yeah. So where are we at with this motion now? We have a conceptual design and then we're going to utilize that conceptual design to apply for any grants that don't need a more intense design, right? And we're going to create a prioritization list. And then there's the addition of bringing back, we're going to re-review previously approved Sunset, look at Plymouth, and if I could add, you know, North Santa Fe, is that acceptable to the maker of the motion? Okay, I second. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I don't think anybody questions where I'm going to stand on that, but regardless, I don't know why this is called a passion project of mine. You are correct that the discussion was, maybe it wasn't the same, but we were talking about a mile of sidewalk for the same price roughly of what you're asking for. I also know that, here's the other issue I have, like the failure to see the value in adding sidewalks to Sunset when it is such a clear path for students going to RBV, when there are families over there that are walking. I'm not saying that there are not other areas of the city that need sidewalks. I've never said that. And in fact, we had a conversation saying that we need to change the way in the matrix and metrics in which we value and score our sidewalks for future sidewalk projects. But if you're going to start defunding projects that have been allocated funding for, it is a dangerous, dangerous precedent to set. And, we had a majority consensus on the council at the end of that vote. Whether there were things in there we agreed with, maybe there are things in there I didn't agree with, but I'm not going to call to have them defunded simply because I don't agree with the allocation of those funds. I'm also not sitting here saying, let's bring all the money to District 4 and fund every single spot I think there needs to be a sidewalk. I was talking about a very specific stretch that is heavily, heavily trafficked, and there is no argument in that. It is heavily trafficked. There are people that walk there all the time. And even then, the argument that was made was, well, they're not going to work, so who cares if they're walking? Those aren't the exact words, but that was basically the argument being made, which is so incredibly, it is just so incredibly wrong to even utilize that argument, because these are still residents of our community that need to get around safely. And so it really should have no basis in whether they're going to work or whether they're going to public transit or what it might be. But you have a lot of kids going to school. You have a lot of young families in that area. So yes, I did advocate and fought for Sunset because it was a mile stretch of road that needed sidewalks. They're patchy sidewalks where it is heavily trafficked by pedestrians, by bike riders, by runners. Even that night I saw someone running on my way home after we approved it. So to call it a passion project, it's extremely insulting. I've never insulted you on this dais, so I really wish you wouldn't lobby personal things at me. But regardless, I think to defund that would be a very dangerous precedent we're setting on this council, so I would really encourage that we didn't. But it is what it is. I will not be supporting this either way. So,
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
I'll just say I actually do really support sidewalks on Sunset. I think that it's a great location for sidewalks. For whether you're walking for recreational purposes or by chance you are going to employment. Like the mayor did mention, we have sidewalks missing throughout the entire city of Vista, and so anywhere where people want to move, I would love to be able to build the infrastructure for them to move. This infrastructure is extremely expensive, and we do need to be consistent with our priorities. And the arguments that you've made tonight have compelled me to ask the question, have we actually spent the money that we allocated? We are an evolving body that does learn new information, and we're lucky we're in a position where we haven't made a mistake in spending money on the wrong priorities. So as much as I do want to see sidewalks on Sunset and every street in the city of Vista, I want to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible first and foremost. And in fact, after we approved the sidewalks on Sunset, I spoke to a resident around Mar Vista. And, there's a lot of transit users in that area. There's a bus stop. It's a very, very trafficked area as well. It's right by the freeway. And the gentleman was telling me that he really felt like he needed sidewalks over there on Mar Vista. So, whether it's Sunset or Mar Vista, whether it's Santa Fe, Plymouth, some of these historic neighborhoods, I support sidewalks in all of them. But we are having a conversation. I think the consensus that we all have here is that we want to prioritize our funding in a way that is consistent. And I agree with that. That's what you're telling me tonight. That's why you abstained. That's why I didn't get votes from some of our other members. I can agree. We want to use our funding in a way that's consistent. So I totally support those sidewalks. And I'll go forward and call for the vote and ask that we do vote on the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
I just want to make clear, though, we're not defunding Sunset. The money is still going to be in the budget for Sunset. What this motion would do is to bring that project so that it could be reviewed for metrics. It doesn't mean that the body is going to vote to defund it. It's just going to be, in my opinion, held to the same scrutiny as other possible priorities for infrastructure. We would have to make an entirely different, we'd have to have an entirely different meeting to remove funding from that. Is that correct, City Attorney? Okay, that's correct. So it could just be a way to get more information about your project. It doesn't mean that it's going to lose money. And I really hope that, what you're saying about this project comes to light, when it comes back. If this motion even passes, I don't even know if there's a majority of the council that wants this motion to pass. I'm not in the, I don't want to defund any of our priorities because we did have a majority vote on that, even though I didn't like it, because that came out of my district. $2.7 million of our year-end fund balance was removed from District 1, which is one of the areas that needs it the most. So that really pissed me off when that happened. So I don't think that if you support this motion, it doesn't mean that sunset is defunded. It just means that we're going to take a look at it. And there probably wouldn't even be, support to defund it. I don't know. If we had that conversation, that's a totally different meeting. But I just want you to know that by me seconding this motion doesn't mean that I support defunding sunset. It really would be good to start this priority list where now we're going to have North Santa Fe, Sunset, and Plymouth, with one of those already having funds allocated to them. Because there's the potential that there's an argument where Councilmember O'Donnell can say, it's not enough sidewalk on Sunset. We need to connect it more to X and YZ area. And then the council can then approve an extension of Sunset. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that I'm on record. I am not supporting the defunding of Sunset. I do support bringing it into a prioritization list where it's already has earmarked money for it to be funded, but we can take a look at it in a structure that we're going to look at other areas that need sidewalk.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
Do you know offhand how many current sidewalk projects we have that are funded but not started?
I don't offhand. I'm going to guess it's probably 3 or 4.
Should we bring them all back? We can, yeah. I'm still not going to support this because I think it's the wrong idea. But bring them all back if that's the case. We're going to have to litigate and have the conversation anyway. And I appreciate your comments, Councilmember Contreras. I really do. I'm not going to make any more argument for it. I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with this course of action, but I'm only one person on this council, so.
Okay, seeing no other discussion on this motion, please cast your votes. Okay, that item fails with 3 against and 2 in favor. Now I'm going to make a motion that we have I'm going to call it a pedestrian projects priority list, and that we bring as many projects as are currently funded, and this Plymouth project, and we can still add Sunset to it, even though we're not yet messing with the funding on it. But I would add all of those and entertain suggestions from the staff about such other projects as should be added for the mere purpose of consideration about the greatest priority. And then I would say, when this item comes back to us, and definitely put North Santa Fe on it. And then when this comes back, I would say, council members, be ready to present any pedestrian safety projects that you think are important. Let's put it on this list. And then by all means, every year, let's figure out how much of that we can get done. By all means. I love that idea because that is an organized way that if you sat down with your family and you made a list at the end of the year, okay, we got this much money left, and husband and wife and everybody in the house and whoever's in the house, we got all these things we need to do and we want to do. What's most important? That's how you would do it together, right? So I'm 100% behind this. So I would make that motion if there's a second for it. I think that one's the simplest that maybe we can all, maybe we have a 5-0. Councilmember Contreras.
I love that. I think this is a way really for my sidewalks to rise in the priority list. I'm sorry, Councilmember O'Donnell. But yeah, the one thing that I'm concerned about, Mayor, is that I almost feel like this should be a workshop versus a council meeting.
Let's make it a workshop.
Okay, so that way we can have a singular focus, because this potentially, if it's a council meeting, there's going to be other agenda items stacked on it, and we're going to get back to our habits of leaving at midnight. So, and I will ask the city manager if we have any meetings that are scheduled workshops that haven't been programmed yet. We do. Huh?
Yeah, they're later though. It's like summertime. We have our workshops full from March, April, May. So it could be maybe a June workshop.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And then in the meantime, if we want to bring forward any of these projects to try and ram them through an ATP grant.
Yeah, we will bring the ATP stuff back to you before that. We submit that.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
Oh,
What? Uh-oh.
maybe June might not work. Anyway, I'll find a workshop date that will work and we'll bring it back.
Okay. What I don't want to lose either is in the previous two, actually, I don't remember if it was in the second motion, but applying for any grants at the conceptual, would you be okay with amending your motion for Plymouth to be moved forward just with already the work that staff has done to apply for any grants?
If staff is convinced that it won't reduce our opportunity to be competitive in any other application?
Sure. Yeah, we can make sure.
Okay, as long as it doesn't get in the way of that, yes.
Okay.
I absolutely support that.
So you add that to the motion? Okay, yeah, I second your motion. Thank you. I really appreciate this discussion. I know it's sometimes difficult because there's so many needs in the city and we're like scrambling. There's never enough money. But I think creating some kind of a matrix for prioritization, at least it's a starting point. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I appreciate you having a discussion about including Plymouth Drive and just, on our earmarks and on our grant applications. This is something we're already looking at, so let's, put it forward and see what the state and federal government can do for us. But I wanted to clarify if, we're going to wait for a workshop to review any number of pedestrian improvement projects that are either partially funded, fully funded now, that we haven't conceived of yet, right? That might have been in the works for a long time. Would we be accepting of pausing any issuing of funds for the ones that are currently in process until we have the workshop? What would that procedure look like?
I think staff's going to have to return to us soon, and I would think the entire council would agree that if we have any grant money that we would lose, that we would not want to lose anything we've already been awarded. So I would think we would all agree to that, right?
Yes.
The direction is don't give away anything we've already been awarded, but other than grants already awarded, yeah, I would bring them all back. And look, honestly, arterial roadways, that stretch of South Santa Fe, or North Santa Fe rather, I would really like to see that done. I've been seeing that dirt path up there for a long time. We've been waiting for somebody to develop that big plot that's not at grade with Santa Fe. That would be a great candidate in my mind. It's a shorter stretch, and there was probably a bunch of others in that area that could really use it. And there are areas that are probably not going to be redeveloped for a long time. So
to clarify my question, between now and June, perhaps it's Sunset Drive, perhaps it's another sidewalk project that we haven't prioritized, but we've still funded.
So you want to say basically freeze any funding for any thing that we don't have grant funding for. Is that it?
Supposing we're waiting months and months, staff are at a duty to our direction. And I would be concerned about the continuing of a project that we later identify as not being a priority.
I think staff's got the idea. Mr. Conley, would you agree that you've got the idea on this, that we want a holistic review? And I think I think there's a majority here that's pretty clear about that.
It's not in the motion, though.
I do think we might need to agendize. If we're talking about now new direction from council to not spend any of the appropriated funding, I do think we have to agendize. And
Okay, we can give direction in the motion to agendize that exactly, and we can come back and talk about that.
I just want to understand the procedure.
And I wanted to be clear that my motion doesn't include requesting an earmark. It does request what Councilmember Contreras asked about, the ATP. And the difference is you can only ask for so many. I have a rule when asking people for something. You can only ask for one thing. Don't ever ask me for two things, because by the time you get done asking for two things, I'm lost, and well, they've just asked for too much. I can help you with one thing at a time. So I don't like to go to the congressman and ask for too many things. They're only going to give us one. I'm telling you right now, I worked on Capitol Hill for a decade. They're only going to give you one. So you got to really figure out what's the one thing, transportation-wise, that you want to say, hey, Congressman, this is my priority. This is as a city. Yeah, that's the next conversation. But so this doesn't include that. The motion is just for the ATP grant pursuit. Is anybody now unclear what the motion is? Councilmember Contreras for a colloquy here to clarify.
Yes, no, I agree, except that it's for any grants, right? Not just ATP, because we don't have the sufficient information to be competitive for ATP. So it'd actually be everything except ATP, because we don't have the design for ATP.
Staff said a couple of times they'd have to check on whether or not they could do ATP.
But what we're asking is that we would want to use this opportunity to apply for other grants with this
Right.
project if it's eligible.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah,
fine.
I think we're clear then.
Yeah, if we get a
Thanks.
grant to pay for it, I'm fine with it. Councilmember Green?
Okay, so I'm pretty clear on what your motion is, but so instead of just doing like a sidewalks prioritization list, you're actually also requesting that we freeze all spending on any sidewalk projects until our sidewalk workshop is done or until staff comes back with a priority list?
Well, it sounds like we can't technically freeze the sunset.
Okay, good.
Funding.
Yeah, I just don't want to.
Or maybe, to be clear, any of the funding that we voted on.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, good. I
But-
just don't want to approve a
but-
motion that's taking away funding from that particular project.
But I think staff understands where we're headed, and I'm sure they're going to have other priorities that get in the way of getting these things done until they get back to us on this. Or maybe they won't. That's up to
call for the
them.
vote.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, that passes with 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Okay, and any other conversation on this agenda item before we move on to item D2? No other motions? All right. Thank you all for the very spirited, we did a little coming together there at the end. I think that was good. Okay, D2, our final discussion item this evening is regarding state and federal community project funding, or earmarks, as they're sometimes known, or specified grants. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature or by pressing the *9 on their touchtone phone or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Assistant City Manager, Imelda Huerta, will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just waiting for the PowerPoint. She can't open it. No.
Did you leave it open on your computer?
No, I don't think so.
Works that way in my office. Do we have it in our,
Yeah.
well, we
No,
have
I
it
got
in
it.
our, we have it here in front of us, right?
No worries.
We can do it the old-fashioned way. Do you have a copy of it, Imelda?
I do.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
We'll
Good
follow along here.
Sounds
For-
great.
For the public, it is on our website that would like to see what we're looking at this presentation. It is on our website, isn't it, under our materials for this evening's agenda? Why, I'm going to gripe about something off the record here, or off the agenda. Why are the staff presentations not included? Is it?
They're included after the fact in the record,
Okay,
along
after
with
the
any
fact. All right.
comments that we get
Very
during the
good.
meeting.
Okay. I wish if it was possible to put these in so people could see them in advance. I don't know if it always is.
If they're provided as part of the agenda
Okay,
report a
very
week
good.
ahead of time, then we will usually attach them.
All right, but they're there afterwards, so we'll count that as good enough for the time being. I'm sorry, Ms. Huerta.
No worries. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, grant writer and management analyst Angie Baggett and I will be presenting on state and federal community project funding. As a quick background, in recent years, city staff have been contacted by state Senate, Assembly, and federal legislative representatives, typically at the beginning of each calendar year, to discuss a short list of priority projects that include a state or federal nexus, align with state or federal priorities, and benefit the overall community. Priority projects are considered for possible state and federal community project funding, also referred to as earmarks, congressional directed spending, or specified grants. In 2023, legislators met with city council members and staff to discuss priorities. Staff submitted the following projects for funding consideration: the Emerald Complete Streets Project, an interim supportive housing project, CIP 8906 West Vista Way Drainage Channel Improvements Project, Rancho Minerva Safe Routes to School, and the Avo Playhouse renovations. Of those projects, $5 million was awarded by Senator Catherine Blakespear to the city for the interim supportive housing project, also known as the Buena Creek Navigation Center. $250,000 was awarded by Assemblywoman Lori Davis for the Avo renovation project, and $850,000 was moved forward by Congressman Mike Levin for the Emerald Complete Streets project. Other projects, such as the West Vista Way Drainage Channel Improvements and Rancho Minerva Safe Routes to School, were also supported by legislators, including Senators Feinstein and Padilla, but did not advance in committee. Additionally, other projects that were submitted and awarded funding in previous years include the Nevada and Lemon Sidewalk Lighting Project, EV charging stations, and Luz Durant Community Center and Sheriff substations, to name a few. Before discussing the 2024 project considerations, Angie will go over the process.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'll provide a brief overview of the process for earmark funding tonight. So the process starts with the legislative office's call for proposals. Those can be formal or informal. Some projects only require a brief project description and a meeting with staff to be advocated for, while others will have a online portal where you'll have a formal question and answer session about the project. There are several funding categories that the projects can be submitted to. Those include agricultural, rural development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies. Also, commerce, justice, science, and related agencies. Energy, water development, and related agencies. Homeland Security, Interior, Environment, and related agencies. Military construction. And lastly, transportation, housing, and urban development, and related agencies. Once projects are submitted, each office chooses which projects they will move forward and advocate for. The projects that are moved forward must pass the Appropriations Committee and be awarded. After the funding is awarded, it is assigned to be administered through a state or federal agency, for example, HUD or California Department of Natural Resources, depending on the project type. At that point, the process is similar to any other grant, in that a formal application must be completed, approved, and a grant agreement signed between the city and the grantor before the funds are awarded and the project will move forward. Timelines can vary, but it can take a year or more from the time the city is notified of the award. Key projects have been identified for the council's consideration for earmark request for fiscal year 2024. These include traffic signals at $2.5 million, which include traffic signals at South Santa Fe Avenue, Santa Fe Place, Santa Anita Place, West Vista Way and Cedar Road, and also Poinsetta Avenue and Corporate View. Secondly, Emerald Drive Complete Streets at $9 million. This includes a 1-mile segment between Olive Avenue and West Drive that includes 6 roundabouts, sidewalks, bicycle facilities, and increased street lighting. Next, West Bobier Drive Complete Streets project at $4.75 million. This looks to reduce lanes from 4 to 2, includes 2 roundabouts, a raised median, pedestrian crossings, and bicycle facilities. And also, the fourth one on the list, Rancho Minerva Safe Routes to Schools at $7.5 million. And that project looks to improve walking and biking and includes full design and implementation of that project.
Okay, the 5th project on your list is the West Vista Way rehab. West Vista Way is a 2-lane arterial street that is in need of asphalt resurfacing. The segment from the SR 78 on-ramp to the city limits with the city of Oceanside was used as an undesignated detour route during the storm drain failure under SR 78 this past year. The heavy truck traffic and additional vehicles accelerated the deterioration of the asphalt surface, causing cracking and rutting. Recent historical rainfall has further caused the asphalt surface to deteriorate even further. The project cost estimate includes just the construction of the street rehabilitation for the segment listed, which is an estimate of $1.35 million. Number 6 on the list is West Vista Way Complete Streets Engineering. This is a major east-west connector traversing the cities of Vista and Oceanside. The street is not only an important vehicular commuter route, but is also a critical connector for active transportation to access numerous destinations. The portion of West Vista Way within the city of Vista between North Melrose and Thunder Drive does not have any speed controls or adequate active transportation accommodations, with only striped bike lanes placed immediately adjacent to 50+ mile/hour traffic. In addition, several bus stops exist on the south freeway side of the street with no improved pedestrian crossings to provide safe or proper access to transit from neighborhoods to the north. This is a 2.1-mile segment on West Vista Way, and it experienced several traffic accidents over the past 5 years. The project provides for the design and environmental documentation of complete streets improvements, including roundabouts, protected bike lanes, sidewalks, enhanced pedestrian crossings, and street lighting. The estimated total project cost for this project is $2.88 million. Number 7 on your list is Madigual Park. This is the future Madigual Park resides at the end of Madigual Drive, adjacent to Hacienda Drive and SR 78. This is a 2.27-acre parcel, which will allow for various community proposed amenities. Community workshops will be held during the current Parks Needs Assessment Program, or Parks Master Plan, that will determine the best use for the park. The project cost estimate is for design and construction of the park, which is estimated at $6 million. The last project on the list is the Avo Curbside Parcel Redevelopment Feasibility Study. The proposal includes hiring an architectural firm to perform a redevelopment site assessment study for the parcels underlying the Avo Playhouse, Curbside Cafe, and adjacent public parking lot. The study will provide design guidelines and alternatives for a mixed-use development that contains a community theater and public parking with housing above. The estimated total cost for this study is $450,000. Just a few things to note. All the totals listed are estimated total project costs, and projects are listed by priority based on staff's evaluation of public safety. Additionally, the average earmark awards range from $1 million to $3 million, typically or less, and projects can be phased to be more competitive, which we will typically discuss with legislative staff. Typically, we submit 3 to 5 projects, depending on staff's capacity for project completion within the required timeline. Additionally, following tonight's direction, staff will return to City Council for adoption of a supporting reso to be submitted with the selected project proposals. The reso will include verbiage to allow for flexibility should we change projects based on City Council and/or staff discussions. Thank you for your time. This concludes staff's presentation. We are happy to answer any questions. We also have engineering staff available.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I apologize. We actually have one public, I'm so sorry. If we could, let's call on our public speaker, Mr. Hood. Sorry about that, Deputy Mayor. I'll come right back to you.
Well, good evening again. I need to express my objection to the lack of providing meaningful information to the citizens for reviewing these projects. These little brief paragraphs with no maps and no information, inconsistent information even that we've heard is just frustrating. The AVO project is estimated at $450,000. I heard earlier comments that Representative Davies got $250,000 for that. What's the disconnect? Do we really have all the money? This is just amazing to me. Further, while most of these projects sound good, we're in the midst of a general plan update and initiating an environmental commission. And the input from those two efforts should be included in these kinds of important projects. In particular, I think we ought to consider in the AVO area, the Main Street downtown area, creating a park and turning that parking lot next to AVO into a Socolo, a place for people to meet with trees and talk and enjoy the community together. We should have an area, or at least consider turning that area into a space where on weekends we have pedestrian-only traffic to encourage business and the like. We also could consider putting in place a community parking district method to charge for parking and actually increase business. Del Mar has developed this kind of method and has generated $1.25 million each year for the last several years, and they put it into developing and improving the immediate area where the parking is charged for. So there are a whole lot of ideas that we aren't considering, and just plunging ahead, in particular with this AVO thing, AVO project, without looking at all the considering alternatives, it seems to me to be wrong. And please, please, if you're going to put things on the agenda, provide information for us to review so that we can provide meaningful comments. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Following up from our last discussion, I think that I really want to reflect back what staff mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, which is a short list, right? And things that we can all get behind, really consensus building as a council, because once we approve this list, we could go into meetings with our representatives and go rogue and start advocating for different items that we particularly care about. But if we all can come to consensus about these items and really determine what are the highest priorities, then each of us in those legislative advocacy sessions and earmark discussions with Congressman Mike Levin and our other representatives, we will be that much more effective. I really appreciated working with city staff last year and meeting with Congressman Mike Levin in regards to the Emerald Drive Complete Streets project. We were able to get funding for towards the design. And because we are developing a formal design, we know we're going to be much more competitive for the state and regional active transportation project funds that we're going after now. So I would love to understand what folks' thoughts are in terms of the methodology. Do we want to prioritize funding new projects that don't have any resources behind them yet? Or do we want to look at projects that we have a high interest in continuing what we've started? And I'll speak in response to Mr. Hood's concerns. I think he left. But the 2024 project consideration for the AVO curbside parcel redevelopment, this $450,000 would be in addition to the award that we are due to receive from last year's earmarks. Is that correct? So this would be an example of continuing a project that we've already started. I think that this is a great list, right? Depending on the methodology that we want to go about it, right? It's really kind of, I see two big options here. Do we prioritize projects that don't have any resources towards them that we know are really important, or do we focus on kind of continuing what we started? I kind of lean more towards the continuing what we started. I know that Rancho Minerva Safe Routes to School has been in the works for a really long time, and I would love to see that have more funding. But really, is this the first time we're going after funding for West Vista Way on these two items? That's the first, yeah,
Yes.
seeing this on the list is huge area of conflict for people. So I'm open to all of these items, but I do hold the same concerns as our mayor, who mentioned that if you ask for too much, you might not get what you really need. So would love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Councilmember Contreras.
Again, there's just so many needs in the city, so it's hard to, for me, it's whatever, fits. I know certain representatives have different categories that they want to fund more than others, so I want to be very mindful of that. And I'm not sure if that was part of the presentation, because I know that that's been just like on our one-on-ones where some of the elected representatives are really focusing on, one category. Did I miss that in the presentation?
No, so typically, once we meet with them, we'll have that discussion with them on what the priorities are. We have reached out. So one of our senator's office have reached out to us already. One U.S. senator, one state senator have reached out to meet with us. We did request their priorities, which we haven't received yet, but
Okay.
just based on research that we've done online and just from past projects that they've awarded in the past, we kind of have a feel for what their priorities are. Some are homelessness and housing, others are infrastructure related, some are more like the community projects or parks. So it just, once we meet with them, we'll have a more clear information on their priorities for this year.
Okay. I just want to bring, I think everything I see here on the list is important. I'm really consistently saddened by the Rancho Minerva Safe Routes to School because it is so difficult to fund, and it doesn't seem to be very competitive for any funding, which is just heartbreaking to me. I want to offer something, and just to set the stage maybe for the future, because it's not going to be prepared, I think, in time for the 2020, well, maybe. So let me just tell you. So NCTD is going to be reviewing on Thursday their micro transit plan. Vista is scheduled for their Zone 2. So they're not scheduled until April 2025. And it's going to run for 12 months, right? If on Thursday NCTD approves this plan, I'm wondering if there's the ability to maybe get funding to move, because right now NCTD is doing it with limited funds, right? There's not a lot of funds for this. But the microtransit area in Vista, on the map it looks, I'm going to get some more clarification because you know how it's hard to tell where things are on the map. But where it's at, it looks like it covers a good amount of our downtown and being able to get people to downtown. So I just wanted to offer that to the council, that if this agenda item passes on Thursday, I wonder if we could advocate to get funding to move that microtransit to the front of the list. Because right now San Marcos is going to beat us. They're Zone 1, and they're going to be coming out the gate if this is approved in 2024. I don't want to have to wait till 2025. So I don't know if we can maybe have conversations with NCTD and see, they've parsed out how much it costs. So it's a little difficult to tell from the agenda packet exactly how much the Vista portion is, but I'm just throwing it out there that I wonder if we could have a conversation with NCTD and move that pilot program from year 25 to this year. I don't know. So I just wanted to offer that to my council and to staff, because I think we have a great opportunity to start connecting a lot more people to our downtown, and then within the downtown, making sure that all the different areas, A, B, and C, are getting folks to travel in them. So I don't know if I can put that in here right now because it's not formalized yet on NCTD. But I just wanted to let you all know that that's something that's going to happen on Thursday, that discussion. Thanks.
Councilmember Green.
Yeah, I like the idea. If NCTD wants to give us money and we can work on getting a project ready, let's go. Number one, thank you, Imelda and Angela. And Angela, let me just tell you, so refreshing to have you here as the grant writer lady, man. Thank you so much. You've been getting us lots of grants. Really, really appreciate that. And we were just talking about another 50 grand that you're going to be getting us for, you know, public safety stuff. So, I mean, you are really doing a great job. So first of all, thank you for that. Looking at these project considerations, these are all projects that are going to make a huge difference on infrastructure and basically quality of life for all of our residents. You know, I think we've heard it enough. If you ask for a whole bunch of stuff, they might not give it to you. Pick one. The Rancho Minerva Safe Routes, obviously we've been fighting for that for a long time. We're going to have to change the name to the VITA Safe Routes to School program by the time it gets presented. And who knows, maybe we'll get more funding when we change it to VITA. Madrigal Park, I think, is huge, and also AVO. Out of the 7 or the 8 that you had here, those were the 3 big ones that kind of stood out to me. In addition, if I had to pick a 4th, Emerald Project, man, I get so many complaints from people about Emerald, probably because the whole world goes to Costco, and they all have to get off on Emerald Drive to go to Costco. And we got a lot of kids that go to Tri-City Christian, a lot of kids that go to Casita, and that whole cluster is just good luck, Council Deputy Mayor Melendez. So anyways, I love these projects. I don't have anything else I really want to add. I do just want to advocate again for the Safe Routes to School at Rancho Minerva, because that also includes Vale Terrace, which you want to talk about kids walking down the street with no sidewalks and people flying down a road. Boom, there's another one. So thank you guys for bringing this forward. Angela, thank you. You have just been such a pleasant addition to the city staff, and I'm really excited for all the grants that are going to be coming forward in the future. Thank you.
I've got a question about the SR 78 on-ramp at West Vista Way. So we're not actually talking about the on-ramp, because that's Caltrans, right?
I can defer to engineering staff. I think,
No, we're referring to this section of West Vista Way that's within our jurisdiction, not the ramps. Ramps are all Caltrans.
Right. That one seems like could be a great one maybe for our assembly member, because really that damage was done by Caltrans' lack of adequate advanced planning over a period of about the last 40 years. Not any one person's fault, but that would be a good one to see if, I think we kind of deserve some consideration from the state on that. I think it's important that we put some priority numbers on these, because I can tell you, I'm telling you, I did these earmark requests in DC, and it's very important. Like, okay, you've asked for 7 things. Which one's first? It's very important. I mean, they're going to put that one first. And you know, our congressman has how many cities? I want to say it's like a dozen in his district. So that's a dozen different requests for each of the, you know, for the transportation approach. So, you know, and he's only going to get like 3 of them. So we got to be thoughtful about this. So what would you say, in staff's opinion, would be the number one for federal of these?
I really appreciate the question. I know for federal, a lot of the infrastructure projects were high on the list with both Congressman Levin and also Senators Padilla and Feinstein, if I remember correctly. They were supporting the Emerald, Safe Routes to School, Rancho Minerva, and also a storm drain project. And so the list you have before you, that's the priority starting from the most priority based on staff's evaluation. But yes, it would be helpful to get a numerical priority from the council as well. We typically will submit anywhere from 3 to 5 projects, and we'll sometimes submit the same projects to all the legislators, or after we meet with them, we'll decide which ones are more appropriate to submit for certain legislators.
Yeah, and I do understand sometimes they like to counsel with you and
Yeah.
tell you which one they would like to support. So that's important to have that flexibility there too.
Exactly.
Are you saying generally staff has put the most important projects near the top according
Yes,
to staff's?
based on
that's good.
engineering staffs, based on public safety
Perfect.
and need, that's how they rank them.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you, and Angela and Imelda, thank you so much for your work on this. Rancho Minerva is my number one, but if we don't, I mean, do we think we can get it? I know that it's been up many, many times.
I mean, we've tried. It was moved forward by one of the U.S. senators last year through this process, and it just was not approved by the committee. It fell out at that point. But, I mean, we can always keep trying. So I think, yeah, we can always try, and we can work with them to see how we can navigate that, or if we need to phase it out and maybe just do portions at a time, and we can work with staff on that as well.
Okay, so my order went Rancho Minerva, Emerald, and then either Madigual or Beaubier. Madigual selfishly, but I'm open to the council. And while he has 12 cities, Mr. Mayor, he does not like any of them more than he likes Vista. So those are all my comments. I appreciate all the work on this, and thank you for bringing it over to us.
Councilmember Contreras.
I'll just say I really appreciate the prioritization. If I had to prioritize them, I would do, I would continue in the order, but removing the number one, which is the traffic signals. I would rather see Emerald Drive, Complete Streets, Beaubier Drive, Complete Streets, sorry. That used to be 2.7 million, and we added protected bike lanes. And so now it's 4.75 million. So I just want, if the number looks a lot bigger, that's because it is now. And then Rancho Minerva, Safe Routes to School. Those would be my top 3.
All right, do you have enough feedback from us?
Yes, just to circle back. So there seems to be consensus on Emerald Drive. Rancho Minerva, Safe Routes to School, West Vista Way rehab brought by the mayor, the 1.35 million project. Madigual, let's see, Beaubier possibly, and Avo, I heard from one council member. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects. And once we meet with the legislators, we can possibly narrow it down if needed.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, it's been a little longer meeting than we thought. I don't see any oral communications requests. So this is the opportunity, the final opportunity for oral communications for those that did not speak. Under the first opportunity, Joe Hood's not here to draw a card. Members of the public that may wish to speak may indicate so by using the raise your hand feature, by pressing star 9 or submitting a request to speak card. Each speaker is given 3 minutes on matters not on the agenda. Don't see any more speakers. With that, we'll, if there are any members of the clerk staff have any comments? Callison, no? Okay, very good. City Attorney, Mr. Conley?
Got a couple. Reminder that the Civic Center will be closed on Monday, the 19th, in observance of President's Day. City parks will remain open. Secondly, we invite all residents to participate in 3 upcoming community meetings. One is Emerald Drive Complete Streets Community Meeting on Thursday, February 22nd. The second is a South Melrose Tree Trimming and Landscape Maintenance Community Meeting on Wednesday, February 28th. And the third is a Town Site Phase 2 Complete Streets Community Meeting on Wednesday, March 27th. All of these will run from 6 to 8 p.m. They are in different locations, and you can get all the information about these at itsyourvista.com. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember O'Donnell.
So as always, just want to say thank you to staff for all your hard work on this, just especially bringing forward our priorities list. I want to thank everybody that came out from my town hall. We had about 45 individuals show up to discuss Madigual and what our residents would like to see there. So I'm going to be emailing everybody out about that. So just was grateful to have the dialogue, the conversation. I will be bringing forward a resolution in support of AB 1999. If anybody wants to look into it, it is repealing AB 205, Section 739.9. So they are going to remove the fixed rate utility tax or fee from that bill. Had a Cal Cities meeting yesterday. Nothing huge to report, but one of the big takeaways was San Diego State University is going to be compiling data from elected officials on programs that they would like to see implemented for training for either before you're elected, while you're elected, and ongoing training thereafter. So that was really good. And then shout out to our social media team, Fred, May, and Aaron. You guys are killing it over there. I had so many people talk about it to me after the town hall, so I just want to say kudos to you and great job. And aside from that, just want to wish everybody in the city of Vista a happy Valentine's Day, especially my beautiful wife, Allie. You all have a good night.
Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you to the public for your engagement. Thank you to my colleagues here for really digging into some of these issues, going to bat for priorities that you have individually. I think it's just part of the process. So I look forward to our future discussions. Again, just hoping when it comes to NCTD, really excited about this possible micro transit here in Vista, wishing that we would be first on the list and not second. So see what I can do about that. But I hope everybody has a really great day. Happy Valentine's Day coming up. And also want to say happy early birthday to a great community leader, Jovita Serafin. It will be her birthday very soon. And she, has Guerreras en Acción por un Vista Limpio. Every week on Wednesday, they go out and they pick up trash in District 1. So thankful for that type of community participation and volunteerism. Everybody have a good night. Thanks.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so first, thanks to Mike Silva and Matt McDonald for being on top of our city finances and helping our city with a stellar audit. The numbers, guys, don't get too much love, so props to you, Mike and Matt. Number 2, huge shout out to Josh Sino Cruz. You guys may not know this, but there is now a city employee golf league on every closed Friday at the City of Vista. Any of you people who think you can golf on Fridays that work for the City of Vista, please contact Josh Sino Cruz and I will deliver such a nice whooping at the golf course. You will not like to come the next time. Also, on the same note with Fred and Aaron and May and the media team, we had over 100 people at our park master plan meeting that Neelay and his whole parks plan team came out to. For the record, pickleballers are fired up. So if you guys are listening and you play tennis, bro, no, there's 25 pickleballers to your one tennis player. So show up strong at the next park meeting. Last but certainly not least, happy Valentine's Day to my forever Valentine, Jennifer Raquel Green. Boop, boop.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start out by just offering a sincere apology to Councilmember O'Donnell. You expressed that you were offended by the comment regarding passion projects, and I genuinely did not mean any offense. I can understand why you might take it that way, and the same term was used regarding my projects, and I really do believe that we're all up here because we are passionate about the work that we do, and just want to extend that apology because I really had no intention of offending you there. I also want to say thanks to our city staff for the great communication efforts that have been going on. We had our general plan update meeting for District 3, and again, different neighborhoods will show up in different ways, and sometimes the neighborhoods in District 3, y'all don't always show up, but you did show up to the general plan update meeting, and I was really surprised, and I met new neighbors, and I think along with the social media, I think the city is taking it really seriously to get more community input, and that just makes our job as representatives easier because then we know exactly what the public expect from us. So thank you to staff for making it possible to come together and have those discussions. And I also want to emphasize that Emerald Drive Complete Streets project is being submitted for grants through the state and through regional bodies for active transportation project funds. And we are going to have a community meeting about the Emerald Drive Complete Streets project on February 22nd at 6 p.m. It'll be at Bellamente Montessori School, just right there off of Emerald. And it's really important for us to get community participation because in addition to having, solid engineering and great plans, the more community participation and community testimony we have, the more competitive we are for grants. So for all of those who are still listening, please participate in this process in any way that you can. And I hope everyone has a lovely Valentine's Day and you feel all sorts of love in your life. Thank you.
Thank you. The city encourages residents to participate in our City Council Goals Survey before March 8th. You can take the survey by visiting vistanewscenter.com. Your input will help shape the City Council's goals and objectives for the next 2 years. Registration for the City of Vista's Free Leadership Academy is now open. Over 8 weeks from March 13th to May 8th, residents can immerse themselves in the inner workings of local government and learn how the city operates. Participants will delve into how decisions are made and discuss important topics like planning, growth, traffic and infrastructure, and city finances. Enrollment is open to Vista residents or business owners age 18 and over. For more information, visit vistanewscenter.com. And in closing, a big happy Valentine's Day to my beautiful bride, Shauna. Thank you for allowing me to serve the community and be here until sometimes late in the evening. Thank you to all of your families for allowing you to do the same. Have a good night. We're adjourned.